And there we are. We are live. Thank you everybody who showed up so far. Got plenty of people that were in waiting. So thank you. Hope everybody's doing well. It's kind of weird that I'm doing this during the daylight for once. Thank you, daylight savings time. Hopefully it should be permanent. I don't know if you guys saw that. Sense at least trying to make it permanent. Here's hoping. Because switching back and forth just sucks. I hate it so much. But yes, hello to everybody who's here. Been a very eventful, I guess you could say, first couple days of free agency, and there's still some big dominoes that are yet to fall. There's a lot of stuff that's kind of orbiting around the Deshaun Watson situation in terms of where he decides to go. You know, New Orleans has made their pitch, Carolina's made their pitch. Apparently, Cleveland made another pitch today. And then we got Atlanta meeting with him tomorrow. So hopefully by end of day tomorrow, we'll know where Deshaun is going. And then once Deshaun chooses a team, there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff that happens after that. And those deals kind of depend on what team he chooses. Obviously, there's a lot of speculation that if that wherever he goes, Will Fuller will follow him. That's probably pretty accurate depending on the team. You know, like New Orleans, I don't know if New Orleans could afford both of them, but certainly if he goes to Atlanta, considering Atlanta's needed receiver, I have to imagine that Will Fuller would be following him to the Falcons, and then maybe even Carolina as well. Probably the Browns too. It's not like the Browns are, you know, I think the Browns would love to have Amari Cooper and Will Fuller and DPJ, considering he also cut Jarvis Landry. So just kind of keep an eye out, because I think there's a lot of players that, however you feel about Deshaun's situation, he's very popular among players, and there's a lot of players that would like to play for Deshaun. So there will be dominoes that fall tomorrow, hopefully, after he chooses his destination. So other than that, we have a lot of players that have already chosen destinations, and then some that chose one and then unchose them. Looking at you, Randy Gregory. He's now reportedly a Bronco after agreeing to terms with Dallas, and then I guess there was contract language or something that he pulled out of that deal. So he's in Denver, kind of a surprise, which then had massive implications for the Von Miller market, the Chandler Jones market, the Melvin Ingram market, because Denver was looking for an edge, and then once Gregory became available, they jumped on that. So that has ramifications for some other people. There he is.
There he is. He had to eat.
I see.
It's been that kind of day.
Yeah, I know. Down here. It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday in free agency. Shit's been happening.
Yeah, no shit.
Well, yeah, the Randy Gregory situation kind of caused a lot of ripples. You know, potentially we could be seeing, Chandler Jones returning to his native upstate New York. He grew up in Rochester, and we know the Bills are potentially making a play for him right now. And the Matt Milano restructure and opening up some cap room might help with that. So I think that would be fun to see Chandler Jones with the Bills, but I guess we'll see.
It would be scary.
Yeah, that front would be sick. Worst case, I think they get Melvin Ingram, but I think Buffalo is going to come out of this with an edge at some point. It's a question of which one now.
Buffalo's been crushing it so far. I mean, we'll get into who we think has been doing really well and who maybe hasn't been doing as well. Just again, in the first, not even 48 hours, it doesn't even really seem possible. It's been fast and furious this year. But the Bills, I don't know about you. We haven't talked about this, but I really like what Brandon Beane's doing in terms of his approach, the players they've gotten, the money they've paid for them, the holes they've filled. They went in early, but they didn't necessarily go in early after big early players, right? They had their guys targeted, and some of those guys feel like second or even maybe borderline third wave players, but they went and got them right away and said, yep. And I just have, when I look at their slate, regardless of whether Chandler Jones or Ingram or anybody joins them, I think that's a really good start.
And I think that they took, some cues from the Rams and also from the Bucs the year before, where it's like, when you have the guy, you should be aggressive every year. Fuck the cap, fuck the picks. Be aggressive every year. When you have the guy, you should never not be in a position to be all in, because all in isn't really all in anymore. Like, there's so many mechanisms for dispersing money and kicking the can down the road. I mean, the Saints did it for 10 years, like,
and they're still doing it, but
it's all fake. It's all fake. Like, they're like 90 million, or they were like 100 million over the cap last year. They had cap issues this year, and they're still trying to trade for Deshaun Watson and keep, Armstead and Michael Thomas. Like, it's
the one that kills. Yeah, the one that kills me is in their division, right? Tampa. Like, Tampa was right up against the cap. We can't sign anybody, and like in the first, not even 48 hours, like Brady comes back, which doesn't really affect the cap. That I mean, it does if he hadn't played, but it's not any change from if he just continued playing. But they get their center back. They keep their top corner at a slightly below market rate. They sign Russell Gage for 10 million straight a year. Like, this is a team that, again, had no money, none.
And they traded for Shaq Mason too.
Yeah. And so they get Mason, Jensen, Gage, and, it's like, and Carlton Davis. And it's like, okay, how is that a team with no money?
Like, they lost Whitehead, but Whitehead's a good player, but
yeah, and he went for a reasonable deal too. But like, this is last year, they literally, their thing was, we're running it back, and they brought their first team I can ever remember that literally brought every single person back. Yeah. And then this year they kind of are on the same track, even though everybody was like, no, they're selling it all for last year's window, right? Oh, apparently they can sell it a little further.
I just kind of find it hilarious how, like, you remember when Kappa signed with Cincinnati, everybody's like, oh, this is the consequence of, when they went all, even we were guilty of this. We're like, they went all in, they got no money, whatever. Kappa signed with Cincinnati, and they're like, they'll have to draft a guy, and then they get an upgrade.
We'll talk about the Shaq Mason thing though, because there have been a lot of, there've been a lot. I've already said that at least 3 times. There's so much. So if you need help at home keeping track, just a plug for our buddy Brad Spielberger over at PFF. They're keeping a running tally, because I started to make a list this morning and went, I can't do it because it changed every 5 minutes. So I reached out to Brad and I said, hey, Brad, do you have a list? And he said, of course, because of course Brad always has a list. And it's the 2022 NFL free agency live reaction stream on PFF. It's a page. They have all these moves. So if you missed some, or you have a life and you can't be on Twitter every 50 seconds, you can check it out. But the Shaq Mason one that came down just a couple of hours ago is one that really, I was like, what? Like, I understand that they have issues. The Patriots spent a ton of money in free agency for the first time in forever last year. So there's some of that. And there's a lot of talk now that they'll draft Zion Johnson if he's still there in the first round. And
now they have to.
That's the thing. But Shaq Mason, literally one of the best guards in football, one of the highest rated guards in football, still young, 28 years old. And all they get is a 5th. And he goes, it's like the protection present for Brady from Belichick, right? Like, oh, here, what a nice parting gift. We'll give you Shaq Mason for a 5th. And it's like, I would like to be in on that. Like, and that most teams probably weren't consulted. That was a straight up sort of one-on-one deal.
That seems like a backdoor. Like, if we're sending him anywhere,
it definitely feels like, hey, do you want to go play with Tom? Like, we need the space and we'll do you a favor. Which is, cool and not cool. Like, I love Shaq Mason, the player. But that one came down and I was like, wait, what? Just a straight 5th? That's it? There's no other exchange?
And what's weird about it is, like, it's such an easily, like, they didn't have to trade him. It's a very easily restructurable deal.
Yeah.
Like, he's an under 30 guard that they could tack on 2 more years. And then, like, there was no guarantees left, if I remember correctly. His cap number is like $8.5 million. Like, I don't understand why they traded him instead of extending him.
There's not a good reason. Like, people say, oh, we had to make space, and Amwenu is a super backup, and we could do, like, all that's true. But like, you have a very good player who's 28 years old, who you don't have to pay yet. You could extend and give him some new money, and keep him. And look, he knows your system. He's been rock solid ever since he got there. there's no reason to shell him out, and definitely no reason. You could have got more than a fifth if you'd actually shopped him a little bit, because you still had leverage. It wasn't a, hey, we have to get rid of this guy, we're right up against it, which we've seen teams do over and over the past 3 days, and they get screwed every time. It's like, well, if we can't restructure blank, we're going to have to release him. And everybody goes, cool.
Release him.
We'll wait.
Yeah. It's the same thing that happened with Jarvis. It's like, oh, we give Jarvis permission to seek a trade. And it's like Jarvis would rather you cut him so he can choose his new deal. Like,
I think that used to work. Like, I think teams hadn't kind of caught up where they were like, oh, wait, we could get in for a pick. Like, and now they're like, no, we'll save the pick.
Once teams figured out that money doesn't matter with these cap mechanisms, they don't give a shit anymore. They
want their picks. So they're like, fine, let him go. We're not paying you for him. I mean, paying in a pick.
Yeah. And by the way, keep in mind, New England also lost their other guard, Ted Karras, too. So they're down 2 guards. Like, they have to take Zion Johnson. They literally have no choice.
Karras is another one. Being a Bears fan, like, Karras is a guy that on my free agency show on Bears Over Beers, I had tabbed in saying, hey, look, the Bears have to be bargain shoppers. They have to wait. They're not going to be, first tier, throw all the money at them. They're not in that spot this year, and they're not ready to compete this year. So it doesn't make a ton of sense either. Who are the guys down the board that they could go after? And Karras was a guy who was like, hey, here's a guy that's got guard and center experience. Bears could use him at either. He's probably going to be available for, I said somewhere between 5 and 8 million. Turns out that's about right.
Yeah.
And, no movement from Poles on that one. Like, he went early again, which is a weird trend.
They're saving their money.
Well, they are, and we both think that there's reasons for that. But Karras is still a guy. They need more than one guy. It's not one guy, right? They need to do that. They don't have a ton of picks either, so they need to save those picks. It's not like, oh, we'll just spend all the picks on interior alignment. Right now, they only have 6 picks, and they're not super high picks, and they need wide receivers because they currently have you can count Daz Newsome, but of guys that contributed last year, they have 1. They have Darnell Mooney, and obviously you cannot make a passing attack in the NFL with 1 good wide receiver. So I understand not jumping in on the free agency bandwagon for wide receiver, because we'll talk about that. That's been a little rich. But again, guys like Karras that you could fill a spot, it's $6 or $7 million a year. He's a starter with experience in 2 spots. Like, why are you not in on that conversation? And if you say just because it's within the first 2 days, I again think that argument is less and less valid, because we've seen a lot of sort of what I would call wave 2 guys go literally before day 2 was done.
Yeah. There are still some tackles left. Morgan Moses is out there. Eric Fisher's out there. So Chicago could still get somebody, but I think they're saving their money. They're going big game hunting. Aiden for $2. Thank you, Aiden. What are the chances Tyron comes back? I don't think he is.
KC?
I don't think he is.
No, they signed Justin Reed. They chose to sign Justin Reed.
Well, even like a month ago, Tyron was like saying his goodbyes.
Yeah, they were pretty set that they were going to replace him with somebody. Does he play somewhere in the NFL next year? Hell yes. Like, he's still a very impactful player. Does he play in KC? I won't say hell no, but I would say like no.
I would be very surprised if KC is spending that money on Tyron instead of making a run at Chandler Jones.
Or just filling other
or
holes.
Vaughn.
That's the other thing. Almost no team out there has 1 or 2 holes. Like, they're all going to lose guys through contract attrition, retirement, whatever else. There are multiple spots to fill, and not all of them have enough picks to do it. So there's going to be that second and third wave of free agency for whoever's left, which is weird. And then there's guys that many of us thought would go high in day 1 or 2 who are still sitting there, like Allen Robinson.
I still think they're dark horse for Allen Robinson's KC.
No, they're not even dark horse anymore. They've been sniffing like loudly.
Yeah. They'd be smart too, because that way they don't have to lean into receiver, because I think by the time they pick, there's going to be a lot of dudes gone, and the edge class is deeper than receiver this year, so you might as well take care of receiver now and then let an edge fall to you. And I think, like, let's just speculate on packages here. Allen Robinson and Ibikiti versus Chandler Jones and Sky Moore.
Maybe. I think both those guys might go a little higher than we think. But the receiver thing's going to be really interesting. And we're going to record a podcast later talking about offensive gems. And, one of my gems in there is a guy he's really interesting because everybody, if you talk to everybody a year ago, they would have said, oh, he's top 5 guaranteed at his position. And this year it's kind of like, everybody's like, oh yeah, he's top 5. And you're like, great, name the top 5. And they get to like 7 and they haven't named him yet. And they're like,
oh shit.
Kind of puts him borderline, like, 7 or 8 receivers are probably going to go in the first round. So it's like borderline even first round now, whereas he was a lock to go in the first 3 or 4 receivers a year ago. It's just it's a strange shift. So we'll see that.
You're talking about too. I think
I know you do. Yeah. And everybody forgets about him. And
no, because I was coming up with my list too, and I was like, oh shit.
Oh wait, wow. I don't have him in there yet. Yeah, we'll have some fun with that. But I saw Jack had a question, and we'll get to some of these because they're sitting there.
Jack, thank you. Oh man, Jack's probably stoked as a Chargers fan.
Oh, Jack is. Jack's having a good week. Yeah.
Brett says sorry for Herbert take. TT has an awesome FA period. This can't be good. In all seriousness, who do we take at 17? I gotta think it's between Jordan Davis and Jameson Williams. In my head, that's kind of my headcanon of who they're choosing between, which you can't really go wrong. Like the Chargers are in such a good spot right now because they're going to get a great player and they're already a good team and they already, got better in free agency.
And everybody has Georgia Thanos just dialed in there. That is the pick, right? That's my code name for
Jordan Davis.
The huge man from Georgia. Yeah. But I think Wyatt's a dark horse there, his teammate. And I had the wild thought, which I do not believe will be true, but one of the guys we highlighted in our defensive gems, I was like, what if they took Devin Lloyd?
Well, it would be them giving up on Kenneth Murray already,
which I already have. So I'm there with that. And like I said, I don't think it's going to happen for many reasons, but they need linebacker help and they're going to lose most likely Kazir White in free agency, who's been a very good
I hope they don't.
Utility. I hope they don't as well, but it's likely. I could see him going to, I said in Bears Over Beers, I would love for him to be a second or third wave ad to go next to Roquan because it would be perfect. He would fit just like Bobby Okereke does in Indianapolis in that defense, and he would be brilliant. So anyways, we'll see, but I don't think it's going to happen. But again, what you said is the most relevant. The Chargers are in a great spot. They don't have any glaring needs. They can take a Jameson Williams. They can take whichever defensive line stud they think is their guy. Everybody says Jordan Davis right now. And I see why. I get it. And I don't think they're wrong necessarily, but like they kind of are in the catbird seat. They can do I'm not going to say they can do no wrong because everybody finds a way to do wrong in the draft every year, but they're going to have to struggle to make a bad choice at 17. They're going to have some very good options.
The positions they need are loaded in this
class.
Strong. Yeah. So it's like, if the Chargers don't make the playoffs now, after this, like, God, they're already one of the best rosters in the league, and they're going to get a lot better.
Yeah, the rest of the Chargers hype, though, man. Chargers hype is a tough thing to stomach. Like I've been hyped about the Chargers many times, as have you.
Every time,
as has Mina, as has Robert Mays, as has everybody. Like you're like, this is the year, and then but it's hard to look at Staley in his second year, Herbert ascending, all the moves they've made to, again, just like Buffalo, say, nope, we got the guy, we're going for it, pedal to the metal, we're going to do everything we can. It's tough to look at that and not go. I mean, their division is a meat grinder, but the team is from a
and roster standpoint. As long as you got that quarterback,
any game,
any game. Ian for $5. Thank you, Ian. Name 2 guys who were more opposite ends of the spectrum than Perna and Scooter.
You mean on a personality basis? No, I understand on their team performance this week. No, Brandon Perna, That's Good Sports on YouTube, is a Broncos fan. So for those of you that don't know him, he is riding high right now. Scooter Magruder, Cowboys fan.
Oh, he's having the week from hell.
He's having that Skip Bayless
because he didn't, you lose Amari, which
kind of knew it was going to happen.
Kind of knew it was going to happen. Getting Tank Lawrence back was great. I thought that was phenomenal for Dallas. And then if they got Lawrence and Gregory, I thought they would have been fine. And they had him, but I guess there was just some sort of
they had him. Well, it was cancellation language apparently in the contract.
Yeah, Dallas wanted an out in case he got suspended again, and he got mad.
No, and the Broncos were like, "Sure, yeah."
Well, that's the thing is like he was not supposed to be like he was on the market, but he wasn't supposed to be on the market. Like like he was going back to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew
he's one of those guys that gets listed in the free agency list in like months ago, and you're like, "Ooh," and then you're like, "Oh no, he's not going anywhere." And there are lots of those guys every year, and they get they get franchise tagged, they get re-signed. It's like sort of like Davante Adams in Green Bay, right? It's like if Rodgers is coming back, Davante's not going anywhere. We'll talk about his contract in a bit, but there's no. I mean, if you're a fan of another team going, "We're going to sign Davante," it's fool's gold. It's not going to happen.
Also, the Kirk contract broke me. Way to break the market ball. Oh, what's funny is I didn't know which Kirk contract you were talking about till I got to Balky.
Best tweet of the week that I saw. Christian Kirk's getting paid.
God damn it.
It was really good. I liked it.
The
I
thing
can't
with the
remember
Christian
the
Kirk
author.
contract is it is basically a 2-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much a 2-year deal. But when you look at Michael Gallup getting 12.5, and even if let's just say it's 2 years, 18.5 per for Christian Kirk. Michael Gallup at 12.5, Christian Kirk 18.5, just for the next 2 years, which to be honest, 2-year periods are really all that matters in the NFL anyway, because everything changes 2 years from now, no matter what. So 2 years is really all that matters. Christian Kirk is not worth 50% more money than Michael Gallup at all. And let's just talk Jacksonville as a whole for a second, because this was kind of
Jaguars did a bad thing.
The Zay Jones deal, I can stomach one, I might be able to stomach two, but like just the whole approach here of, okay, we're just gonna shotgun a whole bunch of like number 2 and number 3 options and hope we can get a number 1 in aggregate, despite the league meta, if you will, being, hey, get the number 1 and then fill around that, like Davante with guys like MVS, and you want to bring in Randall Cobb, fine, but like always have the number 1. Like look at the Cardinals with and without DeAndre Hopkins, where Christian Kirk was. Like you need a true number 1 receiver to compete. The Rams, they lost Robert Woods, still had Cooper Kupp. And Odell was the number 2, and that's a freaking Odell. Tampa, Chris Godwin is the number 1, even though he's a slot receiver, but he is the number 1. Everything kind of orbited around him. And then Mike Evans was ostensibly the number 2. Like all the best teams in the league have that one damn near unstoppable number 1 alpha wide receiver. For the Chiefs, it's Tyreek. Like to shotgun a whole bunch of number 2s and number 3s and then hope to get a number 1 in aggregate, it doesn't work. Let alone when you're paying that number 2 to number 3 receiver $18.5 million a year.
No, what they're paying for the folks that they brought on versus, I saw several roster comparisons yesterday that talked about. Oops, hang on. Let's remove the old banner.
There we go.
Oh, he's back. All right.
I somehow hit backspace on my Mac.
And now you're me.
Oh, God. Hold on.
Friday. You can't do that. Okay. Now I feel better. That was weird. I felt like my liquor cabinet got way bigger all of a sudden. No, I saw a bunch of roster comparisons with like, this is how much money they just invested in these guys, which are, again, middle of the road guys. I like Zay Jones, but I had him on my 2nd and 3rd tier list. As a guy that you plug in, and you look at those comparisons. I saw one to the Chargers. It's like they're paying this much for Justin Herbert, Mike Williams and whatever. They're paying this much for Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and and Evan Ingram or whatever. It's like, oh, not great. And the other thing I saw was a comment that said, great if they get a alpha wide receiver at whatever it is, 33, they'll have the 30th best wide receiver room in the league.
And
And
you're
you're
not
like,
getting a number 1 at 33.
but even if you did, you would still be in the bottom, I would say easily in the bottom third of receiving cores in the NFL. And you just paid $1 billion to do it. It doesn't make a ton of sense. I get signing Oluokun, like I love him, but then you go and cut Miles Jack, right? Basically to do it. And you can say what you want about that. There, the Fatukasi signing was probably one of the better ones, and it's the one nobody's talking about.
I think it's probably their best signing in terms of like value for what
I would
get.
agree. It's just a really odd approach. Like Kirk was always like, if you follow me on Twitter, you're well aware that I was like, please don't sign Christian Kirk to the Bears. Unless he goes for not very much money. And weeks ago, people were talking about him getting $12-15 million. And I was like, no, please don't do that. And I'm the same with NVS.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let me
I see that. Yeah. You do that. But I don't want those two because I think they're terrible players, because of what they were going to go for. It's a value proposition, right? It's, do you want this level of receiver for this much money? And the answer is no. For $8 or $9 million, yeah, I would do that. But everybody knew 2 weeks ago that both of those guys are probably going to get more than that. Kirk ends up getting almost double that, which is just not at all in line for a value. So it's in terms of not the player. I had a lot of people come at me yesterday and say, you don't like Christian Kirk? And I was like, no, I do like Christian Kirk. I liked him coming out of A&M. I didn't think the Cardinals used him very well for a lot of his tenure, which we could say about a lot of the Cardinals draft picks. Nothing against Christian Kirk, but Christian Kirk at 18, yeah, I don't like it.
I can't find anything about Randy going back to the Cowboys.
All right. Well, we'll just wait it out because Randy's had some flip-flopping before. So
yeah. All right, let me get back to it because I just found it. Here we go. Tremaine Perriman for $5. Thank you, Tremaine. I think all these moves are influenced by the Rams, more short-term success instead of long-term building. Yes. And also influenced by the Bucks and influenced by the Broncos when they did it with Peyton. Like 2-year windows. Every 2 years. Like the Jags had 1 year in 2017. That was their window. And then they
blew it up.
They missed the window, so they blew it up, and they're trying again. I'm not sure they're approaching it in the right way for their window, but like you see all these teams, they're operating on 2 windows. Like that's why the Mahomes deal is structured the way it is so like it's so cap maneuverable for the next 10 years that they can just kind of like artificially create new windows around whatever Pat's making. The Green Bay's doing it with Rodgers, where it's like there's 2 like fake years on the end, but it's like 3 years. It's 50 a year. It's 50 a year, but it's the 2 years on the end. Like he's going to be retired before, but I think they're doing that so they have 2 extra years so that they can, because his cap hit went down like 13 million or something for this year because they were trying to open up space.
Yeah, they're trying to open up space, but like they
did the extra years so that they can like redo shit later and just kind of keep opening up space, and then they might have to eat like $100 million in year 5 when he's already retired.
They're going to have a terrible balloon payment because there's a real interesting little difference about bonuses. In terms of signing bonus is one thing, roster bonus is treated differently.
True.
And his are roster bonuses. So if he retires, they can't come after them.
I'm trying. So does that mean next?
It's a tiny little piece of contract minutia that most people are like, it's no big deal.
But they're not going to pay him like $75 million next year when they're trying to win a Super Bowl.
If let's just say something happened and he retired. I'm not saying that's happening. I'm not saying that's why he did this. I'm saying if he did, they all accelerate immediately. Like that balloon payment would just crush their world.
Do you think if they win a Super Bowl this year, he retires and they eat it?
I think I don't know whether he would retire if he felt like he had a good run at another one, but
we got to get Brad on to talk about his contract because
Brad and I have been talking about his contract all day. We started this morning and I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, this is a thing. And I was like, why is it a thing? And he explained it to me and I was like, oh, so that, and he's like, mm-hmm. And I was like, aha. So yeah, we'll do that later. But
like 6 months ago, I was talking to, one of, and let's just call it a cap person for a quarterback who it will eventually be paid, maybe, possibly.
Okay.
And
sure.
like, it's literally like his job to look at every other deal around the league that happens and figure it out. And
say, what does it mean? And what
does it mean? What are the trends?
How soon and how much and what's guaranteed? And yeah.
The Mahomes deal and the Josh Allen deal are so not even remotely the same in terms of structure.
No, they did it very differently.
And the implications that has on the Lamar deal, which who knows if, well, I don't know. Lamar's negotiating himself, so I don't know what the fuck's going to happen with that. They're not even negotiating with Lamar right now because Lamar wants to wait.
I was going to say we shouldn't even negotiate for ourselves, and we make like one billionth of the money he does.
Yeah, like the structure of these quarterback deals are so one of one.
They're the pillars that the league is built on. Everybody knows it now. Like everybody has come around to the fact, and we talk about it all the time, that we talk about it on a really basic level, not the money level, which is if you don't have one of these guys, you have to do everything you can to get one until you do. Like there's not we'll try one thing and sit around for 2 years and nope. Just keep taking bites at the apple, keep giving up draft picks, keep making trades until you get that guy in the building. Then you can do all this, right? Then your window opens, whether it's a veteran or a rookie, it doesn't matter. You know where you are, you know what you have to work with. And there are two strategies, right? You either build around that rookie window and try and fill it up. And we're seeing that happen in Jacksonville and Los Angeles and in Buffalo, or you do it the way the Broncos did it. You build the whole team and you wait for a veteran guy to come open. They tried to do it last year with Rodgers. They thought they were going to get it done at the draft. It didn't happen. They said, fine, we're not going all in to try and get a quarterback young because we've taken the other approach. We're all geared for that. We're going to make another run in the offseason. They get Russell, who many people said was never going to move. And now they are, again, going all in with everything they can. And yeah, the balloon's going to come due, but they think they've got a trophy coming.
It's one of those where if it works, great. And if it doesn't, well, everybody's going to be gone anyway. So.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter. We failed. It blew up.
Random guy for $5. How do you feel about Max Mitchell and Kobe Bryant for the Broncos? I would feel great about that, but I don't know if they're going to have any picks high enough to get Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is very highly thought of from people I've talked to.
He's going to be no later than probably the top 2/3 of the second round.
Top 50, top 60, somewhere around there.
Yeah. And Max Mitchell, I just watched last night, so I have a little bit of recency bias about that. But I
haven't got to him yet.
He's super intriguing, and I actually went back and forth with our buddy Brandon Thorne about him today because I had some thoughts and some questions about the tape that I watched, and so I said, my deal with Brandon is I'll send you my thoughts before I pick your brain so that I'm not getting his take on the player. Like I watch the player, I write my thoughts down. And then if I have questions that I think he might be generous enough to help me with, because he knows a lot more about O-line than I do, I bounce those very few questions off him and say, okay, so I did that with Max Mitchell because I watched him late last night and he's fascinating. Craziest thing was I watched the Texas game with Mitchell and he starts out at right tackle. And I always note where they start or what position they're playing on the line. Halftime comes, he switches and starts playing left. Cause I was looking for him at right and I was like, he didn't get hurt. Like what happened? Where'd he go? And I'm like, oh my God, he's playing left. Is this like somebody else got hurt? No, he plays like a quarter and a half there. He plays all of the third quarter and into the fourth there and doesn't skip a beat. Now, for those of you that don't know a ton about O-line play, that's rare. Like that's not a thing that a lot of people can do. They're unicorns if they can do it seamlessly. Here's a guy in college, looked really good at right, came in left, looked really good at left. It was crazy hot in Texas that day. It was well over 100 degrees on the field. Everybody was dying. And he then goes back to right at the end of the game. And for the most part, like there were some slips in that game, but here's a guy at 6'6", 307, runs really well, super fluid, excellent with his hands, shoots his hands really well, really accurately, sets, resets, doesn't have a ton of power yet. Like that's one of his downsides, but he does okay against power. He's not going to move people in run blocking with power, but Max Mitchell, flexible guy, has experience at left and right, athletic, needs to put on a little strength, but has great feet. Like I like Max Mitchell, but he's middle round guy, third-ish, maybe on down.
Yeah, I haven't got to him, but I have done Kobe Bryant. And Kobe Bryant, I think skill set wise, Surtain and Kobe Bryant are perfect for each other. Like absolutely perfect. I would love them as a duo. I just don't think they're gonna have a high enough pick to do it unless they traded, which maybe they will, but
they could
because it's not like the Broncos need a whole lot at this point. Like they could just give up assets and go get their guy.
You should say hi to, is that Little or Fatty?
Oh, this is Little.
Hey, Little. He's behind the banner, so I can't see. He must be Little. Fatty would be above the banner.
Fatty would take up the whole screen.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Nick Evans. Thank you, Nick. Thoughts on Jags contract cleverness?
It's not that clever.
It's not that clever.
And
the Zay Jones one was worse than the Kirk one. Am I wrong for saying that? Like Zay Jones might have been the worst deal.
The Zay Jones is pretty bad. Evan Engram was like, it was kind of market, but again, high market. And that's because the Panthers screwed up the secondary TE market. Like there were agents on Twitter today saying that a bunch of deals that were supposed to happen early this morning weren't happening because everybody was resetting and going, no. You can't ask for what the Jags paid everybody because we're not paying that. That's asinine.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, but that sets the market. And they were like, no, it doesn't. We're not paying that. So rejigger your expectations. That's garbage.
I think Allen Robinson already would have signed if like Allen, he might have been given like a 4-year deal at this point if the Christian Kirk deal didn't happen, because that slammed on the brakes for everybody.
It really, I mean, as much money as quickly as they spent and in the way and on who they did really threw a wrench in the works. There are a lot of agents who were like, wait, because their players are rightfully calling up, right? And we were talking about this, you and I, yesterday behind the scenes, like Tyreek Hill's going to ask for 30. Like, yeah. And he should. Davante Adams should ask for 30. There's no, I mean, if you're paying Christian Kirk 18, there's no way if you're one of the best, Davante is the best and Tyreek is one of the top 5 or 10, no matter how you count it. Like they're not going to settle for 20 if Christian Kirk's getting 18. So it really does screw things up. But I would say not clever at this point because they haven't had great value with the exception of one, Scherf wasn't great value, but he was super necessary and you have to overpay for quality and free agency. Like I'm okay with the Scherf signing. It's not great, but I'm okay with it. Like the Kirk signing, the Zay Jones signing, the Evan Engram signing, even where they are and what they need, like the Olokun signing. Like I love the player. Again, they gave him a Brinks truck. Like they paid him and he deserves it. He's a good player, but they, do they need it?
Did you see what the Packers offered Adams after the Kirk deal came through?
I don't know that I did. I mean, I might have.
23.
No.
He would have laughed him out of the building.
Well, yeah. I mean, he already said, like, I'm not playing on the tag. Like, he said that definitively yesterday. And I think he means it. And that'll be really interesting to see and he's right not to. Because the tag's, 22 or something this year?
For him, I think
his first tag, right?
They didn't tag him 21.
Last year. Yeah, it's like 22 million. He should not play this year for 22 million. I know that sounds insane. It's supply and demand. He is the best at a desired position in the NFL, and he should get paid.
20.1 is what it is.
Oh, that's ridiculous. There's no way he should play for that.
No.
I wouldn't either.
Especially when Kirk is getting.
Yeah, I would sit out. I would. Like.
JJ for $20. Thank you, JJ. What are your thoughts on the Steelers so far? Mine currently are excited to get James Daniels and starting to think a trade up from Malik Willis is a lot more realistic today than it was last week. They would have to give up an unbelievable amount of assets, maybe more than they're comfortable with, to get into the draft range they need to for Malik Willis. They have to go in the top 5. And I don't think they have the ammo to get up there.
I don't know that we'll see. I don't think you're wrong. So Steelers overall, James Daniels was very good for them. I actually think he may be better in their system than he was in the Bears system. They also got Mason. They re-signed Chucks for a very, I would say a really reasonable deal considering what some people are signing for. So the offensive line is looking up for them, and that's always a key for the Steelers. Trubisky's Trubisky. He is what he is. He's a bridge. Unless Brian Dable worked his magic and made Trubisky understand post-snap coverage rotations, he's going to look a lot like he did in Chicago, which is super athletic, makes some great plays. If it's simple and straightforward, i.e. man, he'll crush you. Think Patricia's Lions. If it's complex, and his division is full of complex now, he's got Ravens and Bengals and Browns defenses. Like he's, unless Dable worked his magic and made him understand those things, he's going to be middle of the road, and he's going to have a few highlight games because he always will. He's got great skills, but his struggle has been on the mental side of really addressing more complex defenses. So that's not great, but I think the Steelers are kind of trending up a little bit. Like the Trubisky thing for a lot of fans, well, Pittsburgh fans went through it yesterday. That feels like last week. It was long enough ago. And look, being a Bears fan, I understand. I went through it for 3 years. But like James Daniels and some of the other signings, like I'm down. They went away from Ahkello Witherspoon, not officially, but they basically offered his money to somebody else. They offered it to him first. It was reported yesterday that was offered. He didn't take it, so they moved. They went out and signed another corner. I think it seems for the most part, other than the quarterback thing, because Steelers fans aren't used to that. Ben's been in the building forever. Other than that, it seems pretty much like a Steelers free agency. Like, here's our offer. You don't like it? Okay, we got another guy in mind, and we'll bring him in, and he'll be effective.
Did you see who they brought back?
Which one?
Montravius.
Yes, I did. For $5 million.
Yeah, it's like nothing.
He played well enough. He and Ahkello Witherspoon, interestingly enough, both played great down the stretch. Like Ahkello was not great in the early part of the season. He played really well in the last, he turned it on last 4 games. He was really good. Montravius was not as good, but had the same arc. He was pretty flat through the beginning part of the season and then started, like a lot of guys do. It takes a bit with the Steelers system to sort of mesh. And once he meshed, he started making some plays. And I was like, oh, look, it's Montravius Adams. Because for those of you that don't know, I was a big Montravius Adams fan in the draft. But to bring him back for, I think it's 2 years for $5 million. I was like, oh man, again, being a Bears fan and moving to a 4 down lineman front now, I was like, boy, for $5 million, you bring him in behind Ogunjobi and whoever else and have fun with that.
You're ready to rock.
Yeah.
I will say, so Mitch getting, it's like minimum 14 million over 2 years, maximum about 14 a year if he hits incentives. It's more money than people expected, even though it is kind of an incentive laden deal.
Some people, I asked some people and I was like, what, I was like, you're going to hate it. And they were like, I was like, what's your guess? And they were like 25. And I was like, per? They were like, yeah. And I was like, oh, you're going to love it.
No. Yeah. Yeah. He wasn't going to get that, but
some people
I
thought
do
he
think
was, and I was like,
the contract that he got, I think the whole last 18 months of Mitchell Trubisky's career and how the league, I say the league, because there was talk at the combine, he was going to get a lot of money. People have been seeing this coming for a while. I think the last couple of weeks have really shown how little people thought of Matt Nagy and how much people think of Brian Dable in terms of as quarterback teachers, where Mitch was Mitch in Chicago. There's no way around it. He was not a good quarterback in Chicago after 2018. When Nagy resumed his play calling crusade from 2019 onward, he was not a good quarterback under Nagy for those last 2 years. And then he goes to Buffalo, doesn't really play,
doesn't do anything.
Yeah. But he's just there in that Brian Dable, center for kids who can't read defense is good. And suddenly he's worth potentially $27 million again. People know how much damage that Bears former
but
staff did to him.
Brandon Beane gets a box of Girl Scout cookies for saying, "Oh, he's the kind that you want to marry your daughter." I mean, there was a concerted effort to inflate Mitch's stock to like, no, he's a starter. No, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, elbow rub.
Well, they do get a comp pick out of it.
He's a starter, yeah. And everybody's like, "Wait, he went to Buffalo. Did he play? He didn't do any." Like people were asking me, like, "What did he do?"
He got away from Nagy.
Yeah,
that's what he did.
Speaking of, you'd mentioned Allen Robinson to the Chiefs earlier. Wouldn't that be a fun locker room reunion?
Oh,
Allen Robinson walking into the Chiefs locker room, looking across at Matt Nagy like daggers.
There were
daggers.
There were some people that avoided Matt Patricia. In terms of, had opportunities to sign with New England and avoided it because they didn't want to be around Matt Patricia again.
No, 100%. So it's really interesting.
Be surprised.
No, it's fascinating, those kind of, because the NFL, it all goes around in circles and you hear it all the time. Oh, this coach worked with them or their brother, or there was a college coach and now he's a pro coach and, they're back together again. They didn't like each other, or, he didn't give him the starting job and now he's, an NFL star. It goes around and round like that. And it's fascinating. But, one side note about Allen Robinson that I kind of like, I felt this because look, I watched all the tape last year, but Allen Robinson dogged it heavily all season.
He didn't care.
He's a much better player than he showed on tape, but he was like, this is me showing you I don't give two shits about you or the organization because you wouldn't sign me long term. So I am going to loaf. I'm not going to touch anybody. Chicago fans are 100% done with him. Like he could say, I will sign with the Bears for 5 cents and I will play hard for Justin. And the entire city of Chicago would cross their arms and turn around. They are out. I mean, out at any level on Allen Robinson to a point that I didn't quite realize. I thought maybe that was the case yesterday. Like, yeah, folks are in my mentions. Like, I don't care. It was very much, I wouldn't pee on him if he was on fire. Like, people are done with Allen Robinson in Chicago. So he's still a great player. He's going to turn it right back on if he gets with a good quarterback, if he goes to KC, if he goes
meanwhile, there's Miami fans going like, please.
Yeah, no. And if he turns it back on, he's going to be right back in the top 10 wide receiver discussion. He's a talented guy. He just shut it down last year. And Bears fans are not ready to forgive or forget about that.
Yeah. Bears fans never forget.
Well,
their endearing quality. Paxman for $5. What should the Raiders do? There's a good chance they're up against at least two future Hall of Famers. Let's see, Russ, Mahomes, probably. Oh, well, Herbert. Herbert's got the talent, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
For the next 5-ish years at minimum. What should the Raiders do?
You had a take on this.
Well, here was my take. Because I got a lot of heat for it.
Uh-huh.
When I said trade Derek Carr, wait it out, I'm not saying wait it out for 15 years, which is, potentially, oh, did I just go away?
Your camera went away, but your audio's still here. So apparently you're just being very private, or did Little step on something?
Oh, God.
I wonder if he pulled a cord. Well, we can have
what happened.
We can have the disembodied voice. Did your camera turn off? Mine does that occasionally. And no. All right. Well,
I didn't do this. This isn't my fault.
This isn't my fault. Well, I'm going to remove the frame either way because there we go. We're back, sort of. Anyways, your disembodied voice can explain your Raiders theory for now.
There we go.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I don't understand.
But you're me again. So it's this whole Freaky Friday thing.
Oh, you know what? It did that whole camera decides to shut off for no apparent reason.
Mine does that once.
Yeah, thanks, Sony.
Yeah, it does that once, and then it won't do it for like 5 hours if you turn it back on. But yeah, all you got to do is click the little cam thing at the bottom.
You're still saying? Oh, yeah. So I'm not advocating to wait out 15 years for Mahomes and Herbert to retire. What I'm saying is the roster is good. Derek Carr is good. But the roster,
But
but there's two ways to win this division. Either you have an elite, ridiculous quarterback, or you have an elite, ridiculous roster. And they are just below both of those. Like Derek Carr, top 12 quarterback in the NFL. I don't think that's even really disputable at this point. Top 12 quarterback in the NFL. The problem is all the other quarterbacks in his division, as you
are above
mentioned,
him.
are above him on that list. So, and not to mention, they also have really good support. Like the Chargers are like a nose tackle and, some linebacker depth away from being the most complete roster in the league. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Broncos are ridiculous at this. Like they don't really need pretty much anything other than getting an edge signing, which they just got with Randy Gregory. Like it's elite quarterbacks and elite rosters throughout the rest of the division. And so this is nothing against how the Raiders built their team. If they were in any other division, yeah, you're like, even if they were in the NFC, if they're in the NFC, they're probably one of the 5 best teams in the NFC, but they might be the 4th best team in their division. So it's a really, really tough spot to be in. And even though I like Derek Carr a lot and I like their roster, like, I'm sorry, you're going in that division where you still don't have a right tackle and you weren't able to sign any of the top corner targets that you were going after because Gilmore is being heavily pursued by the Chiefs. You missed out on Charvarius Ward. You missed out on J.C. Jackson, who also went to your division rival. You might get Darius Williams, like maybe.
You better.
You're not getting Teron Armstead to play right tackle for you because he wants to play left. Like, you might get Morgan Moses, maybe. So their major holes that they haven't been able to address yet. They're still extremely thin at receiver. They have they're like half of their core, not more than half their core, like 75% of their core, they got to pay either this year or next year, which they started doing with Max Crosby. I'm not advocating trading away Max Crosby. What I'm saying is you can either trade Carr, get a shitload of picks, which you would get from Indianapolis. We're talking multiple firsts, probably multiple seconds. They can deal with paying him. And then you use the money and the assets to build an elite roster and fill in the rest of those holes and get a crazy roster and then ride with a rookie.
You could keep Mariota.
You could keep Mariota, fine.
He already knows your system.
He's going to bridge it out. Be a bridge guy, whatever. That's fine.
You could put him in there at Trubisky money, and he already has respect of the team. And you'd be, people are like, well, Mariota's not Carr. Yeah, you're right. But you'd have all the picks, your quarterback compensation for the next period that you're talking about, 2 to 3 years, would be reasonable. You could do the sort of Denver model where you continued to build and use those picks to build the rest of the roster. And then 3 years from now, 4 years from now, when X super quarterback comes out in the draft, you go all in. Or, X quarterback that's really good in the league and is eventually going to leave their team 4 to 5 years from now, you get them. Right. So it's either way. You do one of those two things. But if you keep Carr and this roster, you're kind of stuck in the middle. Doesn't mean that the Raiders aren't going to win any games. What it means is until the NFL restructures its playoff berths and doesn't make it just division winners, but goes by overall strength of schedule and wins and losses, you ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Because you are not going to be one of the best 2 teams in that division, save some really crazy stuff happening. So,
yeah, I don't.
You disappeared again, and I'm still you.
I'm having an issue. I think my camera's overheating. That's why.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't feel like I don't feel like they're close in terms of roster to even the rest of their division. And there's 2 ways to win. Either you have an elite quarterback or you have an elite roster. Occasionally you'll have both. And so I feel like if they cash in their quarterback chip to potentially get the elite roster part down, they might be better off in the long run in this division. I'm talking like 3 years from now than if they try to, gut it out and go toe to toe with a whole bunch of people that have a lot more bullets than them.
Yeah. Kel says move to the AFC South. Yeah.
They'd be the best team in the AFC South. Honestly, Carr's probably a top 4 quarterback in the NFC, and he also might be the 4th best quarterback in his division.
Yeah.
Like, put that in perspective.
It's the AFC West right now and what they've all been doing. KC was already there. The Broncos were a quarterback away, and they've continued to add pieces. And the Chargers, as we talked about, have loaded up like crazy this week, and they already had Herbert. Like, the AFC West was really close to being a super division in football, and the Raiders aren't bad. That's what we're saying is Derek Carr is a top 3rd quarterback in the NFL, and the Raiders have a pretty good roster. The fact that they just happen to be packed in this division, like, I just want the TV schedule to be game of the week. Whatever the primetime game of the week is, it's the AFC West. It's the AFC West divisional game. Like, just show me that game every week because it's not going to be bad. Like, all those teams are going to be just crazy competitive. So there you go.
Again, I want to reiterate to Raiders fans, I'm not saying give up for 10 years. I'm saying if you're going to fight, you got to fight the right way.
Yeah, fight smart.
Fight smart. Get assets. Because right now, like I said, they got more bullets than you. So go take your little extra asset that you have, which some teams want, and go get some more bullets. And then eventually, in 2 to 3 years, you'll be okay. Yeah. I'm not saying shut it down for 10 years. I'm saying set yourself up for a fight in 2 years, and you'll be fine. All right. $2.
Are you going to switch sides, or am I just going to be?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Let me remove you.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. I feel so much better.
Yeah, I think because I got my new light, and I think it's beating right on the camera. And I think it overheated it. I think that's what happened.
Nice.
Yeah, I know.
So making your own problems.
I know. Stupid. I look like an old man with technology at this point. Who do y'all think the 49ers should go after? Well, they got a corner with Ward, which was great. I'm not familiar with how much cap space they have left. Let me double check that. They don't need a whole lot. I'm assuming they're going to get assets from trading Garoppolo to somebody.
To somebody for something. Yeah.
To somebody for something. They don't really
feels
need
like
weapons.
Feels like a ham sandwich at this point. No, Charvarius Ward was a really good get. And in the early days, or free agency, I would rather see a team do that than just spray all over the place and spend money and say, oh, we got 4 guys and 2 of them are really good and 2 of them are kind of average. And I'm just going to say that never works out in free agency. You end up with balloon payments that come due and, go get, like they said, we want Ward at corner, and they went and paid Ward at corner. Good for them. Now sit tight for 4 or 5 days and go through and get value at the other spots that you need to fill in free agency. So I'm fine with the approach. It's rarely popular with fans because you need to show some patience. Bears fans are losing their mind that this is largely perception. Everybody knows that the Bears need offense, and their first big splash signing was defense, and people are just out of their gourds about that. But Ryan Poles said, look, I'm going to be patient. And people killed Ryan Pace for not being patient and paying big money. And now Ryan Poles is being patient and everybody's killing him for it. So like, I would rather see a team do this, have a target, and the Bears with Ogunjobi, the 49ers with Ward. Like, we need this guy to make our system work. Like, we need this guy. He fits really well. There's not a guy, there's a big drop to the next guy in our mind. We're going to go throw money at him, and then we're just going to sit on our hands for a bit, and we're going to see how things shake out. And in the Niners case, I think that's a lot easier to defend because, again, they have a very good roster with not a ton of holes.
Yeah, and with a couple key restructures, they can give themselves back about $20 million in space. And I'm just kind of looking at the roster right now. Like, obviously, skill position, they're totally set. They could use guard help because they lost Tomlinson, which I didn't think they were going to, but
well, Salah wanted him.
Yeah, which not that I'm surprised. Tomlinson's really good, so they could use some guard help, but that market's been kind of drying up. over the last couple days.
Interior offensive line has been the surprising position in the first 2 days. I'm just going to say the first 2 days of free agency, because this whole early negotiating period is bunk. They should just do away with it like daylight savings. Just ditch it.
Well, the negotiations actually start at combine.
Exactly. So what is this? And it serves no purpose. Andrew Brandt said that in response to Amy Trask today on Twitter. She's like, what is the point of this early whatever period? He was like, none. And I'm like, yep, that's right. Get rid of it. So, I'm just going to call it the first 2 days of free agency, because that's what it is. Like, interior offensive line, we're down into what I would consider day 3 guys within 48 hours.
Yeah.
Like, way more guys reached like Brian Allen didn't go anywhere. The center market in particular dried up really quickly. We had every available center re-signing with their own team. Nobody really hit the market. We've had, guys like Ted Karras, who were definitely, in my mind, kind of a day 2 guy, $6 million a year-ish, who've already gone and went a while ago now at this point. The interior offensive line market went fast, like way faster than typically it does, and deeper, I think, too.
I think because in terms of, and we've seen studies on this over the last couple years, in terms of free agency bang for your buck, interior offensive lineman is one of the only spots where you're consistently getting the value.
Get a return. Yep.
Yeah, getting return. That's the number one thing, is get return. Wide receiver, consistently, you get shit return in terms of free agency wide receivers, because most of the best ones don't hit the market.
Well, teams are really good in general now about not letting talent out the door. If somebody hits free agency, there's usually a reason. And people will be like, well, Shaq Mason. Well, Shaq Mason didn't hit free agency. He just got traded. He was not a free agent. They didn't have to let him go. And I saw in the chat, somebody just said Treader's available. Yeah, I'm aware. And
because he got cut. He wasn't supposed to be.
And boy, do I hope he ends up being a Bear, because that would be a solidifying move. If you listen to Browns fans talk about JC Treader, that's a guy you want to put in front of Justin Fields for the next 3 or 4 years. Like, that's a dude. So those guys come available, but the guys that are scheduled to hit free agency and are allowed to, something's up with them. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't fit better in another spot. I actually think Christian Kirk might be more useful in Jacksonville. I think his usage might be better there. Not wild about the money. The fit might be good. So it's not that they can't be successful. It's that you're going to have to pay a lot of money, and there's a reason their home team didn't sign him up. Used to be people would really let a lot slip through, and you'd be like, why is that guy? And it was like, well, their GM's a dumbass. That doesn't happen so much anymore.
I think teams used to be a lot more scared about cap than they are now.
Fully agree with that. So
they know they can afford it, whoever they want to keep.
Will says, so Washington let Scherf go because of missing some games. They know exactly what Scherf is. He's in their building. They knew what they were going to have to pay him and what they were going to get. And Scherf has a little bit, and I heard this term thrown around with Teron Armstead today, and it applies. He's a glass cannon, right? And that means when he's out there, he will blow everybody away. He's amazing, but he's fragile. And Scherf I wouldn't call fragile, but he's going to miss some games. And do we want to pay a premium? Or again, do we want to go back to either the free agent guard market, which is a little tapped, or do we want to go back to the draft where we know starting in round about 3.5, we can go get some guard from somewhere and they'll be pretty good and they'll be up for a contract in 5 years. And we will have paid them $700,000 a year, $500,000 a year as a 4th or 5th round pick. Like, we will have paid nothing. Or do we want to pay, 20 or 30 million to have Brandon Scherf here? Well, from a roster building perspective, they're like, yeah, we'll let him go. And they'll get a comp pick.
Yeah, they'll get a 3rd rounder out of him. Most likely.
They'll get a high round comp pick. So basically it's self-replacement, and you just need to go find somebody to plug into the spot for a year for much less money. So it's all about value and where they fit and everything else. But people know exactly what they have in their building. They're very few sort of like, oh, we had this guy on the practice squad for 3 years and then he goes and becomes, Justin Jefferson. the whole like Priest Holmes thing doesn't really occur anymore.
Yeah. To bring it home to the 49ers, though, I do think they need to go after a guard. They've only got one signing so far, which is Ward, and they're technically like $9 million over the cap right now. But again, with the right restructures, they can alleviate that and probably give themselves about 20 million in space. Maybe they're working on those restructures right now so they can go get somebody. But I if they don't get a guard, again, not the end of the world. They can get one in this draft, but I would prefer that they just take care of that now so they can focus on other stuff in the draft. They don't have to, be pigeonholed into it.
You never want to, as a team, have everybody know what you need to do.
Like Zion Johnson to England.
Yeah, like you don't ever want to have people say what Brett had to say about them, which is no, they have to now. Like, oh, they can't do anything else in the first round. Because people will pip you. They absolutely will. They're like, well, we want a guard. We know they need a guard. Okay, we got to get above 18 if we want Zion Johnson or whatever. Like, you don't want that from an organizational standpoint. It puts you at a disadvantage in the draft, and you will get drilled. The Vikings were terrible at that years ago. They would sit and wait, and everybody knew who they were going after. And oh man, it was like clockwork. People would slot in the slot above them and take their guy, and they'd be like, why? And it's because you left yourself open to it.
Yeah. Donovan Vaults for $10. Thank you, Donovan. Best fit for Olave.
Anywhere.
Yeah, he doesn't really have a bad fit.
He is one of the most, you'll be hearing a lot about Chris Olave from us real soon. He is one of the most scheme agnostic players in this draft. He is capable of doing everything you need a wide receiver to do. Now, given that, is he a 1A alpha? No, I don't think he is, but he is a ready-made Z. He is a number 2 pro right now. Don't care about the system. You need him to be short, intermediate, sideline, down the boundary, crossers. Doesn't matter. He runs the whole route trees. He blocks because Brian Hartline teaches his guys to block. Like, Olave could go anywhere and be really successful right away.
The only place I wouldn't put him is Jacksonville, is because they already have a lot of number 2s. They need a number 1.
Or anywhere that they don't have a great quarterback.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, he could go to Houston, and Davis Mills, the way he was throwing the ball last year,
That'd be good.
like he would use him very, very well. So, I mean, he can go just about anywhere, save someplace that are going to get really bad or inconsistent quarterback play. And even then, he's going to be blocking in your run game, adding you value. He's tough. He rarely misses games. He's got great speed, great hands. He's a technician as a route runner, really experienced, but he's just a great player.
Yeah, I kind of feel like he's going to end up in Detroit opposite Chark, with St. Brown in the slot.
I would only hate that because I root for somebody else in the division, but it would be a great fit for them and the team. I would not want to face a guy like that twice a year because he's getting slept on a little bit in terms of that. Right now is when people are really reaching for high ceiling prospects who could be the best 5 years from now, who has untapped potential, and they get really, and they fall deeply in love with that right now. And guys like Olave, who have been doing it for a couple of years at a very high level, get just slightly suppressed a little bit. And then they become the Terry McLaurin's, to use somebody from his school of the world. And everybody goes, oh man, they're really good. They're really solid. It's like, yep, they always were.
Yeah.
But you wanted that guy that was 6'6" and ran a 4.4 because he was 6'6" and ran a 4.4.
Hey, sometimes it works out.
And teams have a very high variance of how much they'll accept, how much risk they'll accept, and how much they're willing to gamble, depending on who their coaching staff is, what their quarterback is, what their offense is, what their needs are, what their wide receiver room looks like. There's a lot of factors that go into how much they'll gamble on that. But some teams are all about potential, and some teams are all about polished production. I would say the Ravens are a team that is.
They already took him last year with Bateman. It's
exactly
same guy.
But that's why they took Bateman, and they do it with defenders all the time, right? They grab guys that again get sort of undervalued because they've been rock solid, have a ton of production, and they plug in and we're like, oh man, how did they get that guy? Like, because everybody else wanted the flashy penetrating 3-tech that had no production in college. Like, the Ravens are very much a team that kind of goes down the line chalk like that, and it served them very well. Other teams are more risk okay.
That Niner guy for $5 can one of guys trade for Jimmy G? Can you guys talk about why no one really wants him? I have my thoughts. I want to hear from non-Niners fans. Well, people aren't like clamoring for Jimmy G because they know what he is.
It's a ceiling. Yeah, it's a ceiling issue. We were just talking about it with wide receivers.
Yeah.
He's not going to ascend at this point. He has ascended. Everybody knows what he is, where he is, and he is not going to continue to progress to a great extent. He could be made to look better in a system, but not much. The system he was in was pretty friendly to him. It was not a quarterback unfriendly system. So it's very much a known at this point. If we do this, we know what we're getting and we know pretty much how far we're going to go. We also know what we have to do with the rest of our team, which is elevate and build around him, because he is not the guy that's going to pull us through by himself like a Josh Allen, like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Justin Herbert. He is not a quarterback super weapon. So people are, I would say, guarded about what they're going to give up for that. They have to be in a position where all they have is something much worse. It is not a guy that you're gambling on and saying, hey, he might. Jimmy G is not might going to anything.
It fits the Colts because their other option is much worse.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But in like if you're the Colts and you trade for Jimmy G, it better not be a high round pick. That would be terrible. But you have to do it because you know that you're going to be a bottom 5 team if you don't. I think when I look at the Colts roster though, okay, so Jimmy G, San Francisco, they got to 2 conference championships and a Super Bowl in a 3-year period.
Mm-hmm.
Do you, as the Colts, think your roster is better than that Niners roster? If the answer is yes, fine, maybe you can win a ring. Right. I don't think the answer is yes. So do you think you're gonna do what San Francisco couldn't with a worse roster and go through that AFC with all those quarterbacks and still win a Super Bowl?
No? I love that noise. Yeah, I still, and this is why Ballard and I are very different people. Chris Ballard, the GM, I appreciate his approach to roster building. He's built a very good roster with the Colts, but when it comes to the quarterback position, we differ. That was pretty obvious when they made the Wentz trade. If they trade for Jimmy G, it'll be made further clear that we do not have the same opinion or approach to that position. I would not, as a general manager, trade for Jimmy G right now. I just wouldn't unless I had nothing. Like if all I had was, Chase Daniel or something, then I would go for Jimmy G because look, he is a mid-level professional quarterback. But if I was trying to win something, if I was trying to compete, if I had a pretty darn good roster like the Colts do, I would be trying my darndest to pry guys like Tyler Huntley away. And I realize that the Ravens don't want to give him up. You're going to have to pay more than people think you quote unquote should, but you've seen that guy in game action and he looks like a guy that can lift a team, that can win a couple of drives on his own. And, you pair that with a very good roster. Maybe you have something. Is there any guarantee there? No. Is his ceiling higher than Jimmy G's? Oh yeah. Absolutely.
That's why ultimately I think you're going to get more value out of Jordan Love than you do Jimmy G, even though Jordan Love is an unproven commodity, because there's still the chance.
Yeah.
There's still the chance.
I think the floor's a lot lower though. And if you are again risk averse, and Ballard is.
Yeah, but with it, when it comes with Jimmy, who gives a fuck about floor? Like if your ceiling is the conference championship and not the Super Bowl.
No, but Ballard does. Ballard is
it's a move to not get fired. That's what it is. It's a move to not get fired.
Yeah, we disagree. You and I agree, but we disagree with Chris Ballard about this because Chris Ballard he'll take the safe money at quarterback, or what he thinks is the safe money. That's what he was trying to do with Wentz, with a little, hey, maybe he can return to upside under Reich's tutelage. And I could see him. I can't really. Everybody else says, oh, well, if he doesn't go to the Colts, where do you see Jimmy G going? And I'm like,
nowhere.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any market for him. People like Seattle, and I'm like, oh.
Even the Steelers were like, yeah, let's sign Mitch.
Yeah, again, because more athletic upside, Like, it's possible, and the lows will be lower, but the highs will be higher. You, as Steelers fans, you will see some plays out of Mitch, and you'll be like, see, that's our guy. Look, Bears fans did that too, and I hope he can string them together. Mitch is a nice guy. I have no anti-Mitch sentiment in my body. He's a very talented quarterback in terms of being an athlete. He has trouble reading coverages. If he gets over that with that Steelers roster, and the Steelers roster is getting better, good, very good O-line, it looks to be like shaping up. They got Najee there. They got Freiermuth there. The receiving core, obviously, very, very good. He could do really well, but he's got to figure out when defenses rotate after the snap, what the hell's going on.
I look at Chris Ballard. They've had four new quarterbacks for the last 4 years. And there's going to be another one this year. And I just know if they trade a couple day 2 picks for Jimmy G, it's because Ballard's like, you know what? I really like my house, and I don't want my kids to move schools.
Yeah,
that's literally what it is.
Yeah, which would be the Jacob Eason move of, hey, Eason's got a big arm, and we've had him for a couple of years. But that's the other thing. He's been in their building for 2 years. They know exactly what he is. There's a lot of people clamoring for him. And look, it is because he is unknown. He is not unknown to them. They know what he is. They've seen him go against their very good defense in practice every day. They know what he's going to produce for them for the most part. And his physical skills are greater than Jimmy G's for sure. But is his ability to sort of hold the line? I'm with you. If they go and get Jimmy G, it is a very much carry it forward kind of move.
Yeah, it's hoping that Jonathan Taylor can rush for 2,500 yards.
Yeah.
Jonathan Peck for $10.
Easton's in Seattle now? Did they trade him?
No, I think he was released.
Oh, well,
they still got Ellinger. It's Ellinger.
Yeah. They like Ellinger again because he's more of a gamer. No, yeah, that's right. Because people were talking about him, but talking about him once Russ left. Thank you very much, Justin.
Jonathan Peck for $10. I'll say this about the Chargers. That team is boom or bust for the 22 season. This team could be the greatest team in the state of California or the NFL's equivalent of the LA Angels. Well, hold on. As an Angels fan, excuse you, sir.
Oh, boy.
You don't have any right to be that accurate. I don't see them as like boom or bust.
Well, we see him as Chargers, right? Because chargering is a verb.
But but like boom or bust suggests that like, oh, they could be like top 5. I don't see there's any way that they're below average. I would be very.
They would
even with everything that went wrong this year, they were still average.
Yeah, they would have to work hard to get down there because the roster that Tom Telesco has put together, and just really added sort of cherries on top to over the last week. Very, very solid. And like you said, even through injuries, even through everything not necessarily going their way in Staley's first year, they were still a good football team. And they were right at it, right into it until the end of the year. So with the additions, I don't want to face that defense if I'm really kind of anybody. Like I don't want to face that defense. It's a good looking defense right now.
Yeah. I think their floor is average and their ceiling is like
Super Bowl.
15-2
and
number 1 seed. Like I think they're really fucking good. I think they're really fucking good. Justin O'Kuhn for $5. Thank you, Justin. Can we please build the Joe Douglas statue now? Uzoma, Tomlinson, Whitehead, and Reed all on cheap deals, as well as bringing back Berrios and Joyner. Here's why I would rather build a statue. The amount of picks that he got out of Jamal Adams and Sam Darnold, in addition to these free agent signings, I mean, golf clap. Like
he's very different than the previous GM in New York. So picks, free agency, like Whitehead is one of my steals. Tomlinson, I understand the coach's familiarity, and he's a good player. Uzama, you were calling for a seam threat. Uzama, underrated as a tight end, and I think will be a nice, better than safety blanket. People always say safety blanket. He'll be a nice threat for Zach. Reed, I think, was underrated. I saw somebody that said, The last corner that left out of Seattle, I was fine with. Reed, I think they should have paid, and I would tend to agree with him as a slot guy. Berrios, I know everybody in the Jets organization loves him. I'm not such a fan. Joyner is low-key real good, especially since Marcus May is likely is going to be elsewhere. So
what's the deal with him with his injury?
Who, May?
Yeah.
It's concern for teams, but he'll be back. I don't know if he'll be back right away because he was injured a little bit late. But look, Whitehead's great. I think Tomlinson will be good. We'll see. It's kind of a 5 best, but there's some back and forth about where they're going to play Tomlinson and folks that they picked last
I would
year.
imagine they're going to do AVT at right and Tomlinson at left.
We'll see. But cheap deals, you're right. He has not spent the house. I like all those players. I can see all their roles. He has others, and he still has picks. Right? They own a ton of picks, way up high in the draft this year. So yeah, Joe Douglas is putting that team in a position to succeed, unlike they've been in quite some time. And I'm talking about, the last set of playoff runs for the Jets, which at this point, you're talking about like Pennington. It's been a long time.
I don't want to put too much pressure on the kid, but we are just looking at the roster, we are fast approaching no excuses territory for Wilson to take a step.
Oh, he needs to take a step. He, of the 4 or 5, depending on how you count them last year, quarterbacks, was the one that gave me the most pause pre-draft and the most pause during the season. I was like, wow, there were sections where he looked completely lost, and everybody has a rough rookie season. We saw all the rookies have a pretty rough season. Even Max got bumpy towards the end. But his was, there were games where it was like, oh
yeah,
like, is the light gonna come on kind of games. So there's serious questions about Wilson, but he's gonna have a ton more support this year. Hopefully they get the line figured out. That was definitely a thing last year, and I think we love their weapons, but they don't love their weapons. I think they're gonna go all in on getting him top targets, and a bunch of them, to the point where it's kind of like what KC did with the O-line last year, where it's like, doesn't matter if one of them gets hurt, there's 3 more.
Yeah.
Let's go.
It's one of those where it's like, oh, Elijah Moore is our wide receiver 4, and you're just like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Right. It's like elite weapons. So yeah, I like Wilson, but there's a lot around him now, and I really want to see him take a step forward, because if he doesn't, I will be...
Well, they'll be looking. Like, Joe will be amassing stuff and saying, hey, we took a swing, which you need to do because they did not have the guy, and we need to do it again. So, Autumn, happy birthday, looks like.
Oh, happy birthday, Autumn. With the signing, speaking of Autumn, for $2, with the signings, Bengals draft thoughts, tight end, corner. Well, obviously they got to replace CJ. I love the signings with interior.
Yeah,
they got 2 guards.
I'm like, line.
Well, now it's not even, because we were thinking, oh, Zion Johnson, he's a Bengal, but now I'm like, tackle, right tackle is my thing. Not that Jonah was great last year; he gave up like 10 sacks, but now it's not, oh, they need any O-line. Now it's like, if we get value at tackle, we'll pull the trigger. But like they're freed up absolutely to do more in the draft. You want to get corner, you want to go, tight end on day 2, get 2 of them even if you want to, fine, they can do that. So I think this was a very, very good week for Bengals fans.
Yeah, it's what we really hoped they were going to do last year, and they kind of sort of did, and it really didn't work out for them. They drafted a guard, like tackle, who was going to be a guard, and he ended up playing, and the guy that was in front of him was literally one of the worst guards in the league. That caused them an undue amount of pressure, and they still made the freaking Super Bowl. So they are going to load up on interior. They already kind of have. I don't necessarily think they're done. It's been a good week for Bengals fans, and I think it's going to continue to be a good offseason. Again, as long as you have Joe and you keep him healthy and you don't get his knees obliterated, you've got a chance forever. And that's what they're coming around to is, look, Duke Tobin and his staff, they do it very, very differently. They run a small staff. They do it on purpose. They're very proud of it. And last year, hey, look, it worked, but they went back and sort of erased the whiteboard and went, no, no more, because Joe did get injured in the Super Bowl again. A lot of people don't kind of know that or haven't tracked it, but he did get injured in the Super Bowl again. That's twice now in 2 years. They know they can't keep it up. They know what he is. They know what he means to the franchise, to the city, and the priority is exactly what they've started in free agency. And I think will continue, like you said, through the draft.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm kind of going through their signings right now. I'm getting to them right now. Alex Kappa, 4-year, $40 million. Ted Karras, 3-year, $18 million, which is a great deal for Karras.
I know.
They got BJ Hill today, but like they're not. The Bengals have a reputation of not wanting to spend money. They have not been shy at all.
And they tagged Bates. They kept Bates. So
for a big number too.
Yeah, it's 12-9.
12-9, and they're trying to
12-9.
Negotiate another extension, which Marcus Williams got 14. So I have to imagine he's going to get. Which, by the way, Marcus Williams makes less than Eddie Jackson, less than Kevin Byard. He did not reset the market. Bates is going to try to.
Yeah, there was and it's funny because the reason he ended up at the Ravens and not at his first destination, which was
New Orleans.
No, that's where he came from.
Or are you talking about teams he talked to?
Uh-huh.
Who did he talk to first?
Jets.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep. So Whitehead was their second, and I think it was when the price went to a point where they said, we don't maybe want to go to 15 a year, whatever it was going to take.
Yeah.
The Ravens came like, we will. And so that's why Williams is a Raven, not a Jet. But yeah, Jesse Bates is going to make, or should make, in my mind, more.
15. He'll make 15.
He should make more. But again, the Bengals are not cheaping out. And to my mind, they're putting the focus at the right spot. Like Jamar was clearly the right choice last year. It opened up their offense and allowed them to go all the way to the Super Bowl. But they know how close they were to not making it because Joe got pummeled all year.
Yeah.
So they're done with that.
They're done with that.
Good.
Jonathan Peck for $5. Thank you, Jonathan, again. I haven't heard both your guys' thoughts on the Carson Wentz trade. It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah, I mean, the best one I saw this week was Ron Weasley in his Quidditch outfit, and it said the first look at Carson Wentz in his Commander's uniform.
People are like, 27 touchdowns, 7 picks. Did you watch him play?
Yeah, he had great games, very few, 2 or 3, and then he had a lot of what the was that games with a lot of missed picks. He did not go as far as they would have hoped in terms of linear progression. I think again, Carson Wentz is kind of the anti-Jimmy G in terms of the stability model, but he's very much like Jimmy G in that he is a known now. You know what you're getting with Wentz. The idea that he is going to somehow return to that, I'm in the MVP race form at this point is you're just grabbing at straws.
I just look at it this way. So they gave up, 2 third-round picks, not insignificant assets.
Yeah.
And I think there was extra on top of the deal as well. I can't remember, but I remember the 2 third-rounders definitely were part of it. And you're like, they're taking a stab at a high upside player, and I'm like, okay. In the last 2 years, the Eagles, who gave this guy $100 million, what?
Justin says Ravens got Morgan Moses 3 for 15.
Ooh.
I like the money. I like the player.
The Raiders so bad though.
Yeah. No, I agree.
They need a right tackle so bad they could not afford to lose him.
Yeah. Again, Morgan Moses is not anybody that's going to blow anybody away, but in the Ravens system, they understand how to use players like him. That is players that are strong, not super mobile, good in the run game, okay in the pass game. Like Roman is fine with that. So he's a good fit, and they didn't break the bank. If those are the numbers, 3 for 15, that's
really, really
that's
good.
Really
15
low.
Total, yeah.
Yeah, so I would think 5 per, not 15 per year.
That's really good.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the numbers are, but I like the fit of the player with the offense. So thanks for that, Justin.
Yeah. But yeah, so they gave up 2 third-round picks, which for a guy less than 2 calendar years ago, the Eagles, who had given him $100 million contract, said no, we're getting rid of you. And then literally a year after that, less than a calendar year after that, the team that gave up a first-round pick for him said no, we're going to get rid of you. And Washington's like, oh, we could fix him. Yes. Did the last 2 teams, was that not enough information for you to say, oh, maybe there's something wrong here,
Yeah.
and we shouldn't give up 2 third-round picks?
If you're Heineke, what are you feeling at this point? Like, I've come out, I beat Brady, come on, and now it's this guy. Like, you're doing this,
and they took on the contract.
I know.
I'm like, what are you doing?
If it was the NBA and you could like have expiring contracts that you were taking off your books and that was part of the trade value, that would be something. It's not like that in the NFL. So, I don't love it. Like it's a very placeholder move. Does Washington take a quarterback in the draft? Maybe. It's not a great quarterback draft. And in fact, when we release our draft rankings, I thought about this today and I'm fairly set on it. I'm not putting anybody at the number 1 spot.
Oh, it's just you're starting at QB2.
I am
going down
because it's just representative of, look, that guy's not here right now. Like, it's not saying Malik can't ascend. He could. Is he anywhere close right now? He's not. Is anybody else? Like, I think Corral's the closest, but am I sold on that? Am I like 100% Matt Corral's QB1? Not there. So I think I'm just going to start at QB2. And it's just I saw a question earlier in the chat. If Mills and I think it was Mond were in this draft, where would they be? And I'm like, honestly, with what we know about Mills now, Mills would be QB1 above Pickett.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's fair to say, especially how he performed last year. So,
and I know hindsight's always 20/20, but we're just looking at what happened in the league.
And Mond would be somewhere in the pack with a bunch of these guys. Like, he would be at 4 or 5 with, depending on, again, flavor. There's no like clear starter. That's why I'm not going with a 1, because anybody that needs a starter, like Washington, it's relevant to this discussion. You can't just say, well, they'll just trade. Like, this is not a year I'd be at all comfortable packaging assets to move up for a quarterback, any one of them, because even with Malik, who has tremendous physical skills, is a tremendous person by all accounts, a very smart player, like, he's still got a long way to go. Like, he's got to make moves to get to a level where you can count on him week to week in the NFL. And then, yeah, he does have the physical skills to ascend and become somebody that can win games for you, but that's not going to be a 1-year process, right? So
no, he has to go somewhere he can sit.
Right. So are you going to package picks to move up for that? You better be really sure about A, your bridge quarterback, and B, the rest of your roster, which makes places like Pittsburgh more likely, right? They've got Trubisky for a couple of years. They have a solid roster. They seem to have a plan. So that would make it more likely, but there's nobody in this draft you can just pluck and say, great, 14 months from now, we're going to be set at quarterback. Like, we're really sure.
None that you feel great about, at least.
No. And it's possible. Those guys could ascend. Doesn't look like it right now.
Autumn for $5. Thank you, Autumn, again. Or thoughts on who fans want, such as Everett, JC Treader. Oh, if Bengals got Treader, that'd be amazing. Gilmore, Collins. Collins, I think, is the most likely because of his relationship with Duke Tobin. And I think, he has actually a lot of ties to the Bengals organization, weirdly enough. And he likes them. They like him. Would not be surprised if Lyle Collins is a Bengal. But if they get Kappa, Karras, Lyle Collins, JC Treader all in one offseason, basically doing the same thing the Chiefs did last year.
God.
All right. Yeah, I'll see you in late January. Have fun with that.
Yeah, you're not going to get to Joe. You can't beat him up anymore.
We're fast forwarding to divisional round at that point.
Right. Try and beat him another way. No, I would very much like to see Treader in Chicago. I've said that. And then Terran Armstead is the kind of dark horse that's floating out there. But, if the Bears aren't able to get a Terran Armstead, like Lyle Collins, if he is released, and it sounds like he's going to be, that's a guy that I would pursue as well, because it's not like him or whoever else you have on the roster. Like, you have Tevin, who I believe is a tackle. I'm not sure Poles thinks he is. And we talked with Brandon about this last year. Like, he wasn't 100% sure. He thought he would be an all-pro guard and maybe a Pro Bowl tackle, borderline Pro Bowl tackle. And I can see the reasoning, but
the Zach Martin comp.
Right. Yeah. But I'm not exactly sure that Poles is set with Tevin, because I think me and all the rest of the Bears fans are again penciling Tevin in at tackle, and I'm not so sure that's real. So if they were able to get La'el Collins, who is a tackle, and say, great, you're holding down one of the tackle spots, it really sort of focuses up what they're going to do with the rest of the offensive line. But Treader as a get at center for me would be really good, because he's more experienced and far, I think, better than anybody the Bears are going to be able to get at center in, say, the third round or lower, because they can't spend, I don't think they can afford to spend their top 2 picks, which are both second rounders, on a center. They need wide receivers bad, and they're going to have to go after them up there.
Also, by the way, Treader fits the Bengals system perfectly. So it'd be smart. I don't know how much, let's see, how much cap space do they have? Let me look here. So Bengals have, they have about 13 million before restructures, including restructures. They can get up to after their current signings, they could probably get up to 30.
Well, and they could structure they could also structure the hit, because they're under Burrow's rookie deal for another couple of years. So yeah, they could structure the hits to be more next year if they needed to retain cash.
They could get Treader and Lyle if they want to.
They could. I also think they're not short on draft picks necessarily. So I think that, they'll take what they got in free agency, maybe get one more. One of the 2 of those guys would absolutely be a fit. And then I'm not sure that they won't draft somebody as well, much like the Chiefs did last year. Like, go get people in free agency, trade for people, and, draft people.
No Name for £9. Thank you, No Name. Davante Adams is going after the 30 million a year mark. What do you think the Packers can realistically do? Do they pay him and suffer a cap hit, or try and trade him? I don't think he's going to get 30, but he's definitely going to get more than 23, which is what they offered him. Yeah. I would guess, based on the current market, let's just throw the 21 out for Christian Kirk. It's really more like 18.5 for the first 2 years. Those first 2 years are what matter.
Yeah.
That's what the agent's going to look at, because it's 30. If I remember correctly, it's 37 guaranteed, which over the first 2 years is 18.5. So if Christian Kirk is getting 18.5, Davante, I would think, is going to get 25 to 26. Now, he probably asked for 30 based on what the DeAndre Hopkins deal from a couple years ago was, where he got 2 years at 27 million per tacked on to a contract after he got to Arizona. But the circumstances for that one are a little bit different. I have to imagine he asked for 30 based on that, but it's not.
I would be surprised if he doesn't end up settling out between 27 and 28.
It's possible.
Well, he can. That's the thing, as you said, the circumstances of that are unique, and you're right. It was different. Davante, Hop wasn't the best receiver in the league.
No, Davante at the time was the best receiver in the league.
Right, and Davante still is. So he can lean, and he also knows what he means there. Right? There's extra, him with Rodgers in Green Bay is a different value proposition than it is really almost anywhere else in the league. He would be good anywhere he went. Would he be as good as he is with that psychic link that he has with Aaron? No, he knows. And he also knows when you remove that, much like we talked about Hopkins getting hurt, when that alpha is out of the lineup, their offense is very, very different. And he knows that. So he's going to push it. And there's some pride about it too. He knows, everybody we talked to at the Shrine Bowl who's a wide receiver, they all listed Adams without reservation as the top receiver. There is unanimous agreement, college, pro, it doesn't matter. Davante is the guy. He knows it, and there's no reason for him to take number 2 money when literally everybody that plays wide receiver in this country goes, that guy is the best wide receiver in this country.
Yeah, 330 million people in America, and all of them look at Davante Adams and say he's the best one at his particular job on the face of this planet.
There's no reason for him to go, I'll take 24, even though D-Hop got 27.
I don't think he's taking 24. I think because again, it's the whole like let's go get a ring together thing. I
that was
think
last year.
I think 25, 26 is where we're gonna land.
The guarantees would have to be really high.
Well, if they do a 3-year, even if they do because Aaron's
The
going
structure
to be
is
there
going to
for
be a
3.
challenge. Yeah.
If they're only doing a 3-year deal, and let's say it's like 80% guaranteed, like first 2 years are guaranteed.
It's going to have to be like honest to God, like we've seen now the first player in the league who had his first 7 years worth of contracts fully guaranteed. Like kudos to that agent. Like that guy got all G money for 7 years. That's
I don't think Kirk has ever had an unguaranteed year his entire time in the league since 2012.
Yeah. So like that is the thing. Guaranteed money is what players really place value on because it's what they're gonna get. Like it is not money that the team can cut off and say, "Oh, we're trading you," or "We're gonna ask you." Like guaranteed money is just that. It is what you are getting for sure out of the contract. You might get more, but a lot of times teams will restructure, cut you. Like we saw JC Treader. Like JC Treader probably did have money left out of his contract that he's never gonna see. Right? He'll get his guarantees. He got those already, and he got his bonus, which was prorated, but like that money that he was going to earn this year is gone. Like it's up in smoke. It doesn't exist. So guaranteed.
Here's my prediction. Can I give you my prediction for Davante?
Sure, I'd love it.
3 years, 80 million.
How much guaranteed?
50 to 55 guaranteed.
Okay.
So first 2 years guaranteed. And then they can they can basically have it be a bomb in year 3 after the new TV deal kicks in.
Yeah, I would say that's really close in the overall, but I would push the guaranteed up to closer to. I'd be close to 60. I would say like 50.
Because the only way they keep it down to 25 to 26 is if it's pretty much just guaranteed.
Yeah, they would have to. Yeah, I would guarantee, but I would say his guarantees in the first 2 years have to equal 52, like 26, like has to be guaranteed.
Yeah.
Because again, that's less than another wide receiver in the league. Like I bet the guarantees.
And is he going to turn down again when you're one play away every single game in this league? You know how hard it is to turn down $50 million guaranteed.
Yeah, but you also know about pride and everything else in this
I know
league. It's a big deal, but
man,
I'm not saying
if I was in position to turn down $50 million guaranteed, my mom would slap the shit out of me.
I understand that. and he doesn't seem to be a guy that's driven by like, I have the most money. He seems to be, again, I don't know the man, never met him personally. Doesn't seem to be driven by that, but he is driven by being the best. Absolutely. And part of being the best in the NFL is I'm the best and I got the paper to prove it.
Yeah. We'll see. Jack Fanning for $2. Thank you, Jack. What do you guys think the Bucs do from here on out? Restructure city, baby. Got to get back over the cap. They've done a lot of good moves. At minimum, I think the team is as good as last year, potentially even better because I think they might have got an upgraded guard. But they got to start doing some restructures to get themselves back in the green on cap. They might have one more deal in them, maybe, but it'll.
Carlton gave him a break too. Like
he did.
He took a hometown discount. Like we say, players don't do that, but look, you got Tom Brady. Speaking of one play away, like you're gonna have a shot at a ring if Tom's your quarterback. And again, how long are you gonna have that? He already semi-retired once. Like Carlton said, no, I'll play for less. I'll come back. Like I'm good. If I know I'm getting 35 points a game, like minimum, I'm good. Like that makes it a whole lot easier to play corner.
I think they're going to sign Fournette for something cheap.
It better be something cheap because that's one I wouldn't put money towards. I know what he's been and he's done a great job for them and he's morphed, but
he and Tom are tight.
Tom will get what he wants because Tom always gets what he wants. Like he says, sign this guy, they sign this guy. And
well, even then, Tom can always just hook him up with a TB12 sponsorship on the side to
NIL
fill in the gaps.
Leonard can get his pro NIL.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
these are not accusations. I feel like I have to say that for legal reasons, but
Leonard's the one that came out and said they gave me bag at LSU.
Dude, even well, I won't say the name, but we interviewed some people at Shrine Bowl that said that certain SEC schools,
anybody that's played in the SEC got paid. Like I'm like, this is not a surprise. If you follow college football, if you follow the SEC, those guys are getting paid, and they're getting paid a lot. There's an entire network of people dedicated to delivering them cash and benefits and have been for years.
The words that were used were, they took care of me.
Yeah. But
it's just now it's like,
more open because now they can put their name behind it.
Yeah, exactly. It's some booster affiliated charity. Now that's what does the paying.
Why is Greg Roman still our OC? Good question.
Yeah, we ask ourselves that a lot.
I do.
Ryan for $5. Thank you, Ryan. I have the Ravens trading up for Derek Stingley. Got to stop Jamar Chase for the next 4 years somehow. I mean, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, Chuck Clark, Marcus Williams,
Brandon Stevens,
Derek Stingley. Yeah, that'll do.
Like it does already. I don't know if they need to trade up. Like Stingley is very good, but there are other really good corners that are available. We talked about Kobe. Both of the Washington corners. One of them will be gone. The other one may not be in that range. Like he might be. He probably will be. But and then there's guys that are a little bit down the board, maybe going to go in the 70 to 80 range, or 60 to 80 range, depending on what board you look at, that are real good too. I was watching Martin Emerson from Mississippi State a couple of nights ago, and like, that guy can ball. Like, he's a really good corner, and he's going to go, if you believe any kind of overall selection range, anywhere from like 60 to like some boards down to like 90, 95. So like, he's available, and you don't have to trade up to get him, and, put him in amongst all those killers. He'll be fine.
Yeah. Like the UMass kid, who like is an absolute freak of nature. I'm trying to remember his name. Bryce Hopkins? No, I can't remember his name. But I remember because I was watching him in lead up to Shrine Bowl, and I was like, oh, he's springy. And you're going to get him late day 2, early day 3.
There's so many guys in the corner ranks that, again, everybody's talking about Stingley, everybody's talking about Sauce, and they should. Those guys are amazing. But there's depth at cornerback. I have 22, 23 cornerbacks on my list. Like, they're not all top round guys, but like Martin Emerson's in there. Obviously, Sauce is in there. Mario Goodrich is a guy from Clemson that's going to go late second, maybe.
The Fayetteville State kid.
Yep, Fayetteville State, Joshua Williams. Yeah. I mean, even a guy that we saw at Shrine Bowl, who not very many people are talking about, Jermaine Waller, played for Virginia. That's, he's going to be down the board. Like, there's guys with size. There's great slot guys. Darion Kendrick from Georgia. Georgia has another corner. You don't say. Kyler Gordon's the other one from Washington I was talking about. A lot of people like Caleb Evans from Missouri. Kair Elam from Florida. I was going to say Florida State, but it's Florida. Like, he's really good, and like again, he's that second tier of corner, second to third tier of corner. You don't need to trade up to get Stingley. Stingley's great, but there's plenty good corners, and the Ravens have proved that they can take corners and turn them into very functional players in that system if they have the right traits. And DeCosta and his staff know exactly what traits those are. So don't feel like you need to spend in an area that's already strong to be elite. They could add a player down the board and have a very good player pretty quickly.
Also, let's be honest. It doesn't matter who you bring in. Jamar Chase is probably going to get his anyway.
Yeah, doubled or not.
Like, your main goal should just be outscoring Jamar Chase at this point. You can slow him down, but you're not going to stop him. So,
which goes back to the second question about Greg Roman being the offensive coordinator. But there you go.
We'll get to that one day.
Yeah.
Azul Fuego A10 for $2. Thank you. Thoughts on Justin Reed plus free agent wide receiver for Kansas City? Well, hoping that Allen Robinson and Matt Nagy's relationship is still okay. I
Which
would
it's not.
love.
It's not.
That was probably the dream for me, like Justin Reed, Allen Robinson, and KC. If not, who's left at this point?
In terms of,
because like Chark was kind of the one that I was really penciling in, but then he went to Detroit.
well, Chark, like Gage would have been really good as a 2. I don't think they're going to bring Pringle back. Like they've made their mind up that he's going to go, and that's fine. They're more sort of down the board guys. But yeah, again,
I
those
kind of
guys
wonder
went
if
high.
we saw the report that Laviska's on the trade market. I kind of wonder if like maybe they might want to trade for Chenault and just kind of give up a day 3 for him.
I'm interested because I don't think everybody on the list right now is everybody that's going to be on the list. I would have loved to see Cedric Wilson, who went to Miami for a very reasonable deal. Like he would have been, I think, equal to Pringle or slightly better, and the money would have been fine. I would have loved to see him come in and been the third option in Chicago. Like I wanted that. But again, he went on day 1.5, not for a huge deal, but that's a day 2 guy typically in free agency that's basically gone on day 1 within like the first 24 hours. So, Robinson's the biggest name, but again, I bet people are going to get released. Like Treader wasn't on the block this morning. Now he's available. La'el Collins was maybe not, depending on how things worked out. Looks like he's going to be. So I have a feeling that there may be a receiver or 2 that gets cut loose. Are they going to be top of the board? Maybe not, but you never know. I think we're going to see some more movement there.
I have a theory. It depends on if Deshaun goes to New Orleans. Because if Deshaun goes to New Orleans, I don't think they would be able to get Will Fuller with him. Because I think they can only afford one.
I've seen Fuller I've seen Fuller a lot of places. Let's be honest, because people are he's that glass cannon, man. When he's on the field,
but
he can open it up. Yep,
he fits what they like: vertical speed. And if Deshaun goes to Atlanta, I think Will Fuller goes to Atlanta. If Deshaun goes to New Orleans, I think Will Fuller, decent chance he goes to Kansas City. It just depends. So again,
I really don't think Deshaun's going to Atlanta. That one seems like leverage more than anything else. It just doesn't make any sense because you can't move Ryan.
No,
like you physically cannot move Ryan with what they did to his contract.
It's not even about us because New Orleans, like he's friends. He's really good friends with Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
Like that's a big factor, and it's a stable organization. They have talent, yada yada yada. All things considered, I think, from his perspective, where can you win a championship? New Orleans is probably the best roster, other than Cleveland. But I don't think he wants to go to Cleveland. But out of the other NFC South teams that are bidding for him, I think New Orleans is the best roster that he would want to go to. Not to mention, again, he's really tight with Michael Thomas. But Atlanta, it's hometown. Like Gainesville's 10 miles. He grew up in Gainesville. He has a street named after him there. He's a state champion, high school football legend from literally down the street.
Yeah.
And so I think that even though the supporting cast around him would be vastly inferior, I think it does count for something. And I think he's meeting with them tomorrow for a reason.
Yeah, but Brad and I were talking about this earlier. Like, again, the Ryan contract is an albatross for those of you that don't follow these things. And I don't blame you for not, because it can glaze your eyes over pretty quickly, but they've moved 85% of Ryan's contract value to the back end over the last 2.5 years. It's 85%.
Again, I don't know how they would do it, but they seem to think they could.
And again, like you said, people will move heaven and earth in the cap to do something like that, to get a quarterback for the next, 5 years of the proven track record, to put him with a guy like Pitts, to put him with, the rest of the offense that they're going to build. But they would be giving up the picks to do that, certainly. So again, you better be pretty settled with the folks you have in or the folks you think you can get cheap. And we're seeing you can't get wide receivers cheap. So you better be comfortable with some down the board guys.
You get
as
Jarvis,
targets.
maybe Jarvis.
Sure. I think Jarvis is more done than people think he is. Again, Browns let him go for nothing because
he wanted out.
He wanted out. Nobody was going to do leverage, but part of the reason that nobody was going to do leverage is like Jarvis is not the guy he was. So anyways.
Yeah. Ryan for $5. Did a 2-round mock with trades. Don't know if the link works on you. Unfortunately, I can't open that.
It's all right. We'll copy and paste it. It'll be in the chat when we post it.
If you DM me that, I can look at it in DMs.
We'll take a look. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't open it.
No, I was just looking at Houston's question that just popped up.
Let's see. Anime Holotops for €5. Thank you. Seahawks fans are heading to unknown territory. We are about to suck for the first time in over a decade, and I don't trust Pete with the picks.
Well, they're John's picks now.
I still don't trust John with the picks.
I don't trust John with the picks either, but just a case in point, they are John's picks now. John, this is an agreement with the existing owner of the Seahawks. Used to be the Pete had number one, 51% control over the picks, if you want to call it that. Now John has that 51%. So John has final say with the picks. Do I trust him? No, he's got a decade worth of what the hell are you doing picks. Really, since they finished picking up the Legion of Boom and picked up Russell. Drafts since then have been not good. Like, you can grade drafts after 3 years, and you go back and red pen the Seahawks drafts real hard and see which guys are still in the league, which guys got paid and went elsewhere. I don't trust them with the picks either, which was the big thing why Seahawks fans were, they didn't want to let Russell go because Russell's Russell, and it's very hard to go to the other side of the coin and not have a quarterback. The unspoken part was, and even if we get all those picks, we don't think they're going to help rebuild our team because we don't really trust the power structure in the front office to use them well. So yes, it is unknown territory. And yeah, you're not alone. Steelers fans are with you. Teams that have had quarterbacks for a very long time and have had stability are now going into the quarterback-less space. And it is scary. And you're going to figure it out. And that's why Green Bay paid Aaron Rodgers $1 billion, is because they saw one game of Jordan Love at KC and went, oh no, we don't want to go there. So we'll do anything we have to avoid it. Seahawks loaded up with their picks. They think they can wade in and do a rebuild. We'll see is the answer. But yeah, folks in Seattle, folks in Pittsburgh are going to figure out real quick what it's like to not have the guy who can win a game under center. And it's tough.
We'll check back in 2 months after the draft, and we'll see what it looks like.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the Seahawks draft for sure.
Nicholas Morrow, by the way, signing with the Bears. I don't know if you saw that.
Okay.
I don't think he's starting, right? Would he replace Danny?
Well, Danny's gone.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is like, would he slide in there? Since
I hope that's not their plan. Like, there are better options out there, and one of them just signed with the freaking Vikings right before we started. Like, Hicks was available, and his contract is totally palatable that they signed him for. And I would take Hicks next to Roquan in a flat, hot second. So Morrow, like, I'll have to see the
numbers.
The numbers.
I don't think we have numbers on it yet.
No, we won't. But I don't think having Nicholas Morrow there precludes you from A, taking one, or B, pursuing other options.
Yeah. It's a guy. It's a break class in case of emergency.
It's a guy.
You know?
Yeah.
A guy with no vowels for $5. Ravens fans love the Marcus Williams deal. Yes, we do. Absolutely we do, because
he's a great fit for that organization.
He didn't even reset the market, and he's a really good safety.
Yeah.
Also, what do y'all think of Juju allegedly getting zero interest at his price? Maybe the Jags want a wide receiver 7.
Yeah, no, a lot of people have been saying Juju to Seattle not Seattle, but Chicago, because Chicago has no receivers and Juju's out there, and they're like, hey, he's better than 0, right? I'm not so sure again, and it's the price question. It's a value question. Juju's a fine player. He is, I think, known. Again, he's not going to ascend. He's definitely not going to be a number 1. Ideally, I think he's a number 3.
He's a slot. That's what he
Yeah,
is.
he's a 3.
Yeah.
And would he fit? Yes, they have a spot for him, but it's all about the money. If he wants, 9, 10, 11, 12 million dollars, forget it. Like, he's not worth it. He's just absolutely not, especially at that organization's place in its development cycle. If he hangs around for another couple of weeks and gets desperate for a job and says, "Yeah, I'll sign for 8 million."
If he just says, "Hey, give me DJ Chark's like 1-year mercenary contract," they could do that.
Yeah, but for less.
For
Like,
less.
yeah, it would have to be like half of that. But again, 8, 9 million bucks for 1 year as a flyer, as a fill the room thing. I don't know if Poles wants to do that. Like, he does want to build young. But at that point I would consider it. But this whole like, oh, double digits and he's gonna be your big grab as a wide receiver in free agency, like, I can
Yeah.
see why people aren't all that interested. His ceiling is pretty well established.
I mean, as a number 2 to number 3, though, I will admit he does fit the Jags brand of just platooning and platooning and
It just
platooning.
being the faceless mass of wide receiver 2s and
Yes.
3s.
The amalgamation of receivers that is the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, has
Declan,
anybody told Doug Peterson that he can't play them all at once?
yeah,
Like, that he has to pick one at a time to go out on the field?
Juju is going to be their starting left tackle this year. Declan, for $2, what do you do if you're New England to win the AFC East? Draft every guard available, and then also get another receiver,
They got to
and,
get her.
and somehow do both of those in the first round at the same time with one pick. That's where I'm at with it right now.
Or be really good with your second round pick and wide receiver, which again, if you're not trusting Pete and John with any picks, you're not trusting New England with wide receiver picks.
If they can get, there's speculation that the Shaq deal was to open up cap to get Allen Robinson, in which case that's great.
He'd fit.
He'd
work great. He'd work great with Mac. That would be a very nice connection. Robinson is very good at being where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be. And that's Mac as a thrower. Like, throwing it to a spot on time is money in the bank for him. So it would be a fit. He's certainly better than anybody they have at wide receiver. If that's the case, that's starting to play with house money. Like, you're in a good spot there.
But it's a big if, though.
Oh, for sure.
But if let's just, best case scenario, you're getting Allen Robinson and Zion Johnson's there at 21. You take him, and he's your new, right guard. Good. You're looking fine. But boy, that's a couple big ifs. That is a couple big ifs. But I would love it. I would love it for them. Let me get down here to the next one here. Nick for $5. Thank you, Nick. Just got here. What do you think about Juju to Bears? Oh, well, we just talked about that.
Yeah, not a great idea. Like, I'll settle for high-ish single digits and not a long term. 8, 9 million a year for a year or two. Like,
he's a body. He's a body.
He's a guy. Yeah. And if you don't think that you have or can get anything in the draft, I actually, I don't even think I've told you this. I started making a list of guys I like late round at each position, like guys who are down the board right now that I'm like, I like them better than the consensus, right? And I've got a receiver.
Which one?
I'm not saying yet.
Okay.
He is down the board, and I will put the name out before the draft. I've floated it to a couple people who were like, actually, ironically enough, people that came and said, we need Juju. And I was like, no, we don't. Watch this guy. And they were like, that guy's great. And I was like, that guy's currently going in the 6th or 7th round. Would you rather have him or Juju? And they're like, oh my God, him. And I was like, yeah. So I started doing that. I already had the running back one going from our time at Shrine. We talked about Isaiah Pacheco from Rutgers. He's currently kind of in the undrafted range. Ty Chandler from UNC is going to get drafted, but it's going to be in the 6th or the 7th. Like, these are people that you can get for these quote unquote throwaway or lottery picks who will be players on your team. Will they be starters? Not necessarily. Will they fill out a depth chart very, very nicely and maybe develop into spot starters? They will. And that's the real value. So there are guys down the board, and I'm starting to build that. I've done it now for wide receiver. I still have some people to add. Running back. I found a quarterback that I actually like deep again, kind of like Tyler Huntley for us a couple of years ago.
So the Western Michigan kid? Yeah,
is.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Because I was watching him too, and I was like, oh, I kind of like him.
Yeah, he's kind of got something to him. Anyways,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna have that list before the draft of it's just kind of a my guys down the board list. Like these are not high picks. These are folks, if you have those 6th round comp picks, if you have a 7th round comp pick, if you go trade a 5th for, a 6th and a 7th, like these are the rolls of the dice that you take with those picks.
Yeah. Let's see here.
I got an inside linebacker too.
It's not Troy Anderson, is it?
No, he's going to go way higher because he ran like a 4.42
Oh,
or
that's
something.
right.
Yeah, no, he's going to go.
I think
he's going to go in like the 3rd, like 2nd or 3rd.
Him now.
Yeah.
Petro Mavro, thank you for 14. Appreciate that. Is Carolina Watson's best option? DJ is easily an S tier receiver with him.
No.
I don't know if I'd say he's S tier receiver. I think he's a good receiver with Watson. Robbie's a solid number 2. I would agree with that.
The O-line is bad.
CMC is CMC, and the defense is top 10. O-line is bad, but they have some money to play with in free agency. Well, it's Tunsil staying in Houston, which if you're on the Watson to Carolina train, some people are, a lot of people are not. You'd have to get Tunsil with him, but there's no amount of assets in the world that they could do to get both of them in one giant package. Armstead is not going to Carolina. They would have to pay him like $23 million to make that happen, and they're not doing that.
Nope.
So your offensive line is still going to be bad. Like you're going to have to pay a lot of assets for Watson and a lot of money for the line. And I don't. Again, Carolina, in terms of giving up assets to Houston, is willing to give up more than anybody else. Tepper is desperate as fuck. They are willing to give up whatever Houston wants. But because Watson has a no trade clause, he can just say no. So,
yeah. And the whole CMC thing is CMC. Yeah. And that ain't great. Like CMC is the definition of a glass cannon. Like so effective when he's on the field. Has not been on the field like for the majority of the last 2 years. So CMC is CMC, but that's not a great thing. Like that's not something to wave around and say, come play for us because you'll be with CMC for 2 games. He has struggled with injuries. His availability has been awful. So great player when he's on the field. He's never on the field. So that's a problem. Like they need to get somebody dynamic. However, they paid him $1 billion as running backs go. He was one of those guys that got the big second contract as a running back when they were paying Cook and Kamara and everybody else. And, he's the guy that's earned kind of the least of that. And that's a problem, like in terms of roster building and everything else.
Hold on.
Yeah, if it's true, it was always going to happen. This is Baker Mayfield being released. Like it's been feeling inevitable.
No, hold on, let me put it up here. Give me a second.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been inevitable that he's not going to be in Cleveland. Like they're done with him. There was talk about this at the Senior Bowl, like from the Cleveland media. They were like, JB asked folks from Cleveland directly who are well-known Cleveland reporters who were there. And they were like, do you think Baker starts for Cleveland this year? And they were like, probably not. I wouldn't bet on it. Oh, yank that frame.
So is it showing up for you?
Yeah, I just had to yank the frame so everybody else could see it. The
past 4 years have been nothing short of truly life-changing.
Bracing family memory. Yeah, that sounds like I'm leaving. No clue what happens next. In other words, they called him in and said, by the way, no, they called him in and said, by the way, like at least that's a class thing to do. A lot of teams don't do that. Like they called him in and had the talk. Like we might be making moves. You're probably hearing about it anyways. We need to let you know your place isn't assured. Like I can sort of paraphrase the little pamphlet on that one.
Whatever happens.
You don't call a guy in like that if you're not pretty sure you're getting him out.
They met him today.
Yeah, the whispers have been real loud that they're not doing it. I think they're going a different direction. Now, here's a fascinating question based on that.
I did not think that they were going to win.
I don't know that they are gonna, but I think this has been the speculation that they're going to move on for Baker no matter what.
But I'm just talking like purely from Deshaun. I thought Deshaun would have chosen.
I don't know. I don't know that this is a pro Deshaun reaction.
Maybe.
I think this is I think that it could be for sure, but there was talk that Deshaun or no Deshaun, they're not going forward with Baker. They're done with him.
But so what I've heard is that if Cleveland offers for Deshaun, Baker's part of the deal.
Oh, I heard the opposite. I heard that he was not going to the Texans either way.
I think I have a couple texts to send after this stream.
I think your sources are better than mine on this, but
it wasn't from.
Okay, but anyways,
different,
yeah, no, but I heard he wasn't, and the sort of eventual fallout from that, or the general assumption or the whisper. These are all whispers. None of this is confirmed. Just to be 100% above board, this is nobody saying this is going to happen. The whispers were, it's quite possible that no matter what happens with the Deshaun pursuit, they are pursuing Deshaun Watson. Doesn't matter. Baker's gone one way or another. And I was like, oh, because that means your slate's clear and you're in Seattle and Pittsburgh. Well, not Pittsburgh now because they have one, but you're in the camp of teams that had a quarterback and now do not have one. So what does that mean? And that either means that they are fairly sure about somebody in the draft, or they're willing to do the Colts version and go with Jimmy G or somebody they think they can get.
I know somebody not affiliated with either team told me that Houston was looking for a quarterback back from.
And that's the thing is, like, even if they don't end up being the landing spot for Deshaun Watson, I had heard doesn't matter. We're going to move on one way or another, which was surprising to me for that.
I mean, it might be a little bit of both, to be honest.
Yeah. So
they're not mutually exclusive. Yeah.
This certainly sounds like they called me in and told me I might be done, because he does say, I don't know what happens next. But I think with all the smoke, they probably pulled him in and said, hey, you're hearing a lot of smoke and we need to confirm that there is a lot of smoke, that there's a lot of moving parts, and maybe we don't know what happens, but your time in Cleveland may be coming to an end or something like that.
Let me find Ari's tweet on this.
Yeah.
So Ari says, even if the Browns don't get Deshaun Watson, the message is out Baker Mayfield that he's a lame duck quarterback. Giants didn't do it to Daniel Jones. Eagles didn't do it to Jalen Hurts. Browns did it with Baker.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they pretty much, they're done. And there were people that said, look, he was hurt, and he was really hurt. His shoulder was all torn up. But I think the speed of the NFL has changed. You don't get to sit on a guy for 3-4 years now and say, maybe. Like, I think they were like, even if he comes back healthy, is he the guy? And I think they decided he's not the guy, at least not for us. We're going to take a different swing. We're going to start that process, whether that's going out and drafting a guy like Kenny Pickett, or whether that's getting a guy like Jimmy G that has experience. Like, I totally agree, guy with vowels, that it would not be, in my mind, an upgrade, but in their mind, they're done with one and they're moving to another. To me, that would be, if it's not Deshaun, and I don't think there's any way to know that, because that is, from what both of us are hearing, a very fluid situation in lots of different ways that has changed even significantly today. I think if I'm the front office in Cleveland, which is very numbers focused and next focused, I think it would mean a fresh start. I think that means a draft pick, and I think that means they like somebody enough to be better than Baker 1 year from now.
I don't see any reports anywhere.
No, I think they pulled him in and said, things are not certain. We need to let you know that things are not certain, that it's real. Like,
but at that point, I'm just knowing Baker's personality. At that point, just fucking trade him anyway.
I'm 100% with that. But I think he knows. Like, I think he's taken his. It's been a very rough year for Baker. I think he kind of, despite his braggadocio, some would say arrogance. I don't think it's arrogance. Self-confidence. Despite that, I think he's known. He's been knocked down a peg, injuries and all. But I think they're done. Like, I think they're done, and I think they're going somewhere.
Indy Ballard has to call them right now.
Oh, just to get another. Oh, I can't. I'm not even going to say that. That's just really rude to get.
Well, I'm just in terms of.
I think he's got a better shot.
I think Baker's
Carson did.
Well, yeah, but I also think Baker's got a higher ceiling than Jimmy.
I totally agree. But he's got to stay healthy, and we've seen
health is the thing.
Health is the thing.
But if I'm gonna like trade for a quarterback right now and try to make a run, I'd rather have Baker than Jimmy. I know people are going to disagree with that, but
but the other thing about Indy is who's in their system right now.
You're talking about like Pittman and Jonathan Taylor,
quarterback.
Oh, Ellinger. Oh God. Ellinger and Baker in the same quarterback room. I would love that.
Right, but Ellinger, we're not even talking about the Red River rivalry stuff.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. I was like, yeah, that'd be great.
I know you are. But no, from a physical standpoint, those guys are closer than, say, Carson and Ellinger or even Jimmy G and Ellinger. Like, Ellinger and Baker are, like, Ellinger's a little bigger, but they play similarly.
Progressive could do some amazing commercials with Baker moving out of Cleveland. I would love him, like a commercial of him moving into Lucas Oil.
Honestly,
like getting a tour from a real estate agent at Lucas Oil.
He is a way better pitchman than he is a quarterback, and that's not a shot at him as a quarterback. It's that he's good on TV.
Yeah, he's great on TV.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I'm curious to see.
Yeah,
to see what's going on.
I guess to sum this up, because we've got to pop out of here and start recording another episode. The summary of all this is TBD. Like, we have seen a flurry. We saw the week before free agency started was nuts. Russ moving, the new Aaron contract. Like, it was as insane as any week as I can remember. And the first 2 days of what I'm calling free agency, because have been off the hook with movement. We've seen more movement, more dollars, faster, deeper into the second wave, if you want to call it that. And it's not done yet. We've seen things like the Treader release. Deshaun's still going to land someone. Teron Armstead's still going to land somewhere. Like, just stay tuned. This show is not over. I know for some teams it feels like, oh, we've been here for days and you haven't done anything. It's been not even 2 full days yet. So hang on. There's a lot more movement coming. And honestly, if you look back at the history of free agency, the movement that comes from this point on tends to be pretty significant. People sort of look down on these second and third wave signings. These are the guys that pay out and build teams.
We're significantly over what we were originally planning on doing for the stream, but I do want to read this last one. And if we didn't get to yours, please DM me and ask me your questions there. Because I do want to answer for all the people that gave. I do want to answer your questions. I just can't fit them all into one stream. But I do want to close it out with Mahmoud's point here. For $10. Thank you, Mahmoud, by the way. Ridley would have gone to any team needing a receiver had he not gambled. You can call it hypocritical, but the NFL had made it clear that players are not to get involved. Looking at the current wide receiver market right now, if Calvin Ridley was in this market, he probably cost himself significantly more than $20 million a year.
Yes.
For a $1,500 bet.
Yeah, he already lost $11 million. So,
but if Kirk is getting 18.5, you're telling me Calvin Ridley ain't getting 22?
No, but at current rate, he already lost $11 million for $1,500. But if we subtract or prorate that $11 million out, he probably cost himself another 10 on top of that. So it's like $21 million
it is
for a $1,500 bet. It's
one of the biggest L's I've ever seen.
The baddest beat there ever was. Bet $1,500, lost $21 million. That's ugly odds.
The bag hath been fumbled.
Yes, for sure.
But thank you everybody who showed up. Again, if we didn't get to your questions, please DM it to me. I'd love to.
Yeah, this is tremendous turnout for a 1 day notice, but we thought this was more self-preservation than anything. We thought if we went more than another day, we weren't going to be able to fit it all in. Don't even really feel like we fit all this in. Again, head over to Pro Football Focus. Check out their list. It is all the, it's by team, all assembled, has the contract values, has a rating. No offense to Brad. The rating's not that impressive. It's average, above average, below average, but it is a great source of everything organized by team with money. All the names in one place, and they're updating it like religiously. Like it happens quickly after a deal gets announced. So just bookmark that one throughout free agency because it is dizzying. It's hard to keep up. There's so many moves.
And we're maybe halfway through at most.
Not even like a third of the way through. So yeah.
I'm sure it'll be even crazier tomorrow because we're probably going to get Deshaun Watson news, and from there, a whole bunch more dominoes fall. And
yeah, we didn't talk about that, but we did talk about that, but we didn't talk about the fact that that is the stick in the river right now. That is the peg that is holding up a whole like second wave or tier of moves based on where he goes, what happens, where the other pieces go. Oh, I'm staying if he comes, if he not comes. Okay, now I'm open to offers and I'll go anywhere. There's a whole like second range of moves that are all hanging on that one decision, outcome, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see what happens, but just follow us on Twitter, and I'm sure we'll be tweeting in all caps roughly in 12 hours from now.
10 minutes from now, because that's the NFL.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys very soon.
All right. Take care.